Welcome to Book Lounge by Libby. I'm Joe, and I'm so happy you're here. This is the place where book lovers, authors, and industry insiders come together to talk about the stories we love and the impact they have. Before we dive in, don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to the Libby app YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. If you love what we're doing, leave a review or drop a comment down below. It helps more book lovers find us. Today, I want to take it back to those good old days of summer. We're cooling off in the library AC, playing the summer reading game, and we're reading nonstop late into the night. Unless it was school summer reading, we were only reading late into the night if it was what we wanted to read. From those Little League games to sleepovers with friends and summer camp and family road trips, whatever your summer looked like, we are taking you back there now. Think back, get nostalgic, and if you're a parent now, listen to these voices for some recommendations in juvenile, middle grade, and YA lit. I do also want to say, as a person who loves and reads so much YA and middle grade lit, this episode is for you too. You don't have to have kids to enjoy and to take something away from this. There are so many amazing insights today from our guests about how we can make a lifelong reading and fun for the whole family with our own summer reading games to entice and encourage young readers, but we can also, as adults, do that for ourselves with our friend groups. So stick around, you won't want to miss this one. Now, it is important for kids to be reading over the summer. While I did complain about the reading I had to do that was forced upon me, so to speak, the summer reading programs I was forced to do from, my school system, I was reading nonstop all of the books I wanted to read. But not everyone has a parent or guardian that can easily take them to the library to pick up physical materials, or the access to the school library during the week not being there because school's closed for summer really limits what a lot of students are available to access. There is this thing called the summer slide. It's what happens to kids after an extended school break. They experience a loss in their academic skills, and it's largely attributed to the lack of reading. That seems to have the biggest impact. So, just by picking up books, by reading and encouraging reading, you can help beat that summer slump. It's really interesting to see that, like, yes, you can brush back up on your math, but everything's a little bit easier if you're reading more often. So we talked about the lack of access. Now, hopefully, apps like Libby and our student reading app Sora help slay the slump as well. But here are some ways that you can make it fun. And again, whether it's fun for you because you're a parent or fun for you because you're a kid at heart, I hope you enjoy this episode. So, in our first segment, I'll be in conversation with three amazing guests. And then make sure you stay tuned to segment two, where we'll get book recommendations for all ages from our amazing guest hosts. So let's move into our first segment. Joining me in this first conversation is Jamie Sumner and Kelsey Impicciche. After that, I'll be talking with Julie Soto about her foray into YA with her debut, The Thrashers. Jamie Sumner is the author of the critically acclaimed middle grade novels Roll With It and its sequel, Time to Roll, as well as Tune It Out, One Kid's Trash, and The Summer of June. She is also the author of the nonfiction books Unbound and Eat, Sleep, Save the World for parents of children with special needs. Jamie has written for the New York Times and Washington Post, as well as other publications. She lives with her family in Nashville, Tennessee, and she loves stories that celebrate the grit and beauty in all kids. You can find her on Instagram at JamieSumner_author. Kelsey Impicciche is a professional YouTuber and Twitch streamer with over 1.5 million followers across various platforms, which altogether means she plays video games for a living. When Kelsey isn't making simulated characters fall in love online, she's writing about the different characters falling in love in very difficult situations. Voice of the Ocean is her debut novel, though she hopes she can make it a regular thing. In the meantime, Kelsey can be found sitting beside her dog Chewbacca, or making fun videos about books and games online at Kelsey Dangerous. And Julie Soto is an author, playwright, and actress originally from Sacramento. Julie spent many years bouncing between New York and California before settling in coastal Fort Bragg, California. A theater and fandom nerd, Julie can tell you the name of any Buffy episode if you pick a number 1 through 7 and another 1 through 22. With her Bichon Poodle brother, Charlie, she spends her days writing rom-coms, adult fantasies, and YA thrillers. And at night, she falls asleep to the Pride and Prejudice 2005 in the background. With that, let's turn the page and dive on in. I'm so excited to talk to both of you today and get your perspectives on summer reading for kids. Of course, we're looking across all ages here, so we're looking from the youngest to the kids who might be heading into college, into the adult world in a little bit here. But before we dive in, I want to talk about some of your summer reading memories. So, whoever wants to start, when you think of summertime, when you think of summer reading, did you participate in any programs? Does anything pop out? Just dive in for me.
Okay, so the first thing I remember about any kind of reading program was Book It with Pizza Hut.
Yep.
Please tell me the Pizza Hut still does Book It.
So Pizza Hut still we have recently looked into this here at Libby. Pizza Hut
Please.
still does book it. It's just not advertised quite
Okay,
the way it used to be.
that is
Wait,
upsetting.
bring Book It back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I,
Campaign. Wait, someone's got to post. Wait, can adults do it?
Right? I know. I'm like,
Can I do it?
I think you could.
I mean, like, okay,
Bro,
so
that would be
that
the funniest TikTok though. Oh my gosh.
It'd be
Wait,
such a good TikTok. And if that's how we like revitalize book it, because
listen.
you get your audiences to
I would have. I'm like gonna research this literally after this
you
conversation.
should.
I'm so
we had
excited.
you remember the buttons and
The
they were
giant
shiny?
buttons.
Yeah, and then you would put the stickers around them and then you'd go and you turn in your button to Pizza Hut and they would give you your personal pan pizza. So that was like a huge incentive to read, to get the stickers,
Yep.
to get the pizza. So that was like the biggest. I mean, I shouldn't have been so motivated by a sticker but whatever, it's
And a
fine.
pizza.
And a pizza. And they were like this big, remember? They were like the size of a Lunchable pizza. They were
Yes.
but they were just so much better because you earned it.
Yes.
And then
And you didn't have to beg anyone. You didn't have to be
no,
like,
you're just
Mom,
like,
please, I'll do my chores. You just are like, I earned this. I read these
you
books.
get me my pizza and I want to play
Mhm.
Pac-Man while we wait for it to be made. Thank you very much.
I know. I can see the like Tiffany inspired lamps that
It
say Pizza Hut now.
Right? I think we should do it. You know what? Actually, I know it still exists because one of my first book was chosen as the Book It of the Month book. I'm not even
That's
kidding.
amazing.
Wait, that's so cool. What a
Yes.
fun full circle
Yeah.
moment for you.
I should have gotten a free
Yeah.
pizza for that.
They should have been sending you Pizza Hut swag for that. There's gotta be something
You can
there.
always go out and get it in its honor, you know?
Right?
Won't be the
Go
same.
get that
Won't be the
pizza.
same.
Not quite the same.
So Book It was where you started, Jamie.
Mhm.
Kelsey, what about you? What do you think of when you think of summer reading?
You know, I think I did use Book It. All I remember is that my mom would bring me to the library all the time as a kid growing up in the summer, and I'd get to pick books, and then I'd
Yeah.
bring them home and I'd read them voraciously, and then we'd come back and I'd drop them off and I'd pick out more and on and on and on. And I remember, I don't know if I ever really got the pizza. I do remember that I felt like this, like, that I mean, it was like before Goodreads, but I felt like this feeling of like, I have to read a certain amount of books. And then I felt so good about myself when I like checked one off. I was like, let's go. Like it's its own
1,000%.
reward was just like, you know, getting through as many books as possible. And then the older I got, the more summer reading sort of became like school related, that I
Yeah.
would get like assignments from school. Some of them were pretty dense and like
No.
kind of intense, and I was like,
Kelsey, I
this is so
remember
discouraging.
reading Brothers Karamazov by the pool in the summer because it was my summer reading. And I'm like, it felt wrong in every way. And
Yeah,
it was like this thick.
you're like, yeah, you're like, I'm out, like summer camp vibes, like let's
Yep.
go. And then I'm reading literally, I think I read something of like, I Know Where the Caged Bird Sings, and I was like, what? This is so intense. Not that
Oh, for
kids should
real.
not that people shouldn't read these like very important works. It was just
Right.
like something about having like to be forced to do it solo on vacation was just like like a recipe for disaster. But I do remember a couple times they gave me like options. So that was like a
Yeah.
new thing that was starting to be introduced. It was like they
Mhm.
gave you like a wealth of things and you can kind of pick based on your interests a little more. And then
Yeah.
those books I remember loving. So I have
Yeah.
like a vastly I feel like every summer had a different reading connotation that I can't remember one distinct one out of many.
I totally get that. And I think the idea of like, oh, I'm reading Tuesdays with Maury at the family vacation next to the pool, just something about that feels weird. And then there's a project to go along with it.
Yes. Or
But
like what was it? The Scarlet Letter.
yeah,
I was like
Yeah.
13 reading the Scarlet Letter at the beach and being like, why? This is so
what does this
also
mean and
how
why?
horrible. I mean, it was tea. Don't get me wrong. I was like, girl, but really sad.
Yeah, yeah,
We did Ethan Frome one summer, and I'm like, there's not a more depressing winter
right.
set book in the history of books.
Oof.
But sure,
I
let's do
know.
that.
I feel like there was a summer that we read The Glass Castle, Into the Wild, and I
Oh,
think Tuesdays with Morty. That was like the triple threat for
yes.
Trifecta.
yeah.
Into the Wild was a very popular summer reading book.
Yeah.
Yes. So the thing that I hear though, or the thing that I take away from this, because I look at my own relationship with summer reading and growing up as a kid, I was the reader. You take me to the library, I'm joining their program. And in case, I think if you're watching or listening to this, you're already a library lover. But in case you're looking for things for your kids to read or you're new to the reading space, go to your library and see what their programs are. They have programs for kids, they have programs for adults. I know my library here in Cleveland will give away sports tickets and things like that for adults who compete. And there's like prizes throughout. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, now I'm like looking up that my
Exactly.
BRB, hitting up the library and bullying them.
Yeah,
Just kidding. I would never.
right. You've got to see what they have because you never know what the prizes might be. But so for that, I was motivated. I was going to get my free book. I was checking off the boxes on the like game board. But when it was the school stuff was when I was like, you can't make me read. I simply will not read. But I spent every other hour reading. So when it was the list of like, pick one of these 50 books, I'd be like, oh, I already read that, so I'll just write about that one. But once it, yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly. Oh
I
yeah.
love it. Oh, I was like a nerd. I like read the Odyssey because I had to like I was like I'm gonna read the whole thing and I'm gonna talk about it in class and I'm all the other students kind of hated me in those classes. I never stopped talking. I'm like fair, honestly.
But
I
that's
did
the
the
love of
work.
reading. Exactly. When
I
you do
talked
the
so
work,
you don't have to in class.
the teacher has to be happy with us because Kelsey
Yes,
showed up and she did all the work.
yes. What I'm here to do.
But so looking at summer reading, how would both of you define the perfect summer read for kids? What's going to get them to pick up a book when they don't have to? So I said it in the intro, but for both of you here, part of my goal today is to make people aware of the summer slump, the downtime in school where kids backslide on what they've learned so far in the year because they're not reading. That seems to be like the chief response is like, yeah, you might not be doing all the math you're doing, but if you still are reading, all of your skills are staying fresh across the board. And a lot of times that comes down to access, whether kids can't get to the public library because they're home, because they have to stay home, because parents are working, caregivers can't take them. And their school library is no longer accessible because closed for the summer. So it's great that we have digital resources, we have things that are available, but we also need to meet the kids where they're at. So, what are books that you would recommend? What are ways that you look to say this is the perfect summer read for a kid?
My gosh, I have so many suggestions for this because
Yeah.
I used to teach. So, speaking of full circle, I used to teach high school English before I started writing books. And I taught everything under the sun. I did seminars. So, we got to do, I did madness in literature and I got to pick all these books. Like, I ran into a student the other day, a former student. I was taking my son for a walk and she's like, I still remember reading Alias Grace. I still remember it. And she's like, she's an adult who has a child now. So anyway, so I have all these thoughts. And now that I write middle grade, I especially have thoughts because those are the kids that are, it's like they're at that age where
That's like at risk
oh,
almost. I know that's the wrong word, or
well,
it's like the wrong energy, but that's the crucial. You either get them on the hook
Yes.
and then they're successful no matter how strong of a
Exactly.
reader they are, or if you miss them, then we're at a loss.
Because they're still excited at that age for it
Yeah.
and willing to try different stuff. They don't have their like niche of I only read this or I only read this. Okay, so for summer, or I'm not a reader. Don't even get me started.
Right.
Okay, so so in summer, like I made the joke about Brothers Karamazov, but you want to pick things that read fast because they want to feel successful and they don't want to feel like I'm still on page 50, I'm still in this paragraph, this page is a paragraph.
Yeah.
So I love, and this is like the newest thing that I see a bunch coming out, and this is my new favorite thing to write it, and books in verse. So books in verse.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
okay, like if you look, I have a couple. If you look at the actual pages, they're so much
Right.
quicker to kind of read through.
Mhm.
And so kids feel, and each one is kind of like a snapshot. And so
Right.
kids feel so much more successful when they can get through pages. And the same thing goes for if a kid doesn't think they're a reader or they need to be hooked, graphic novels. Those are
Absolutely.
so fun to read. Scatter the Stars is a hard book to read, but because it was a graphic novel, it read so quickly and you loved it. You wanted to see it.
Right. Yeah, I think
And
like Artie and the Wolf Moon, I think like there's a variety of like that middle grade
yeah,
range of
and
graphic
Dan
novel.
Santat's new book, the one from last year, I can't remember the name of it, and it was like his
Sure.
story of going abroad. His was great too.
Yeah.
Like there's so many and they're so fun to read. And then if you're not going to do that, I would say books that have a fun setting. Like we talked about Into the Wild. Books that the setting itself feels summery or will transport you. Those are so great because you want to be on a trip in the summer and the books will do it, you know?
It's almost like what is the vibe? What is the tone? And let's help set it so match it really well.
Mhm.
It's that age range where an amount of adventure works really well, like
Mhm.
adventure style stories works really well. That's like a good blend overall. I
Mhm.
love your point about graphic novels, and I will also say audiobooks. It's
Yeah. Oh,
easier now.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's easier now that you can,
You can just get them on
borrow
your
and
phone on
exactly.
Libby, which is what I
Good.
do.
I love to hear it.
A plug for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Clip that. Um, I've always wanted to be able to say that, and now I can. Editor, clip that. But yeah, I mean the audio element, I think that for me was really helpful if you're going on a road trip. Finding a story that you can all get into together, I think is
Oh,
impactful.
yeah, that's so fun. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Now, Kelsey, looking at your debut into the space, how would you say that you are approaching your audience? How are you approaching who you're writing for?
I think part of it is a lot of, like, I guess, depth into myself. I don't have, like, as much of the access to, like, students and stuff. I'm not a teacher, but I think about, like, my younger self as a reader, and what did I read? What did my friends read? What did we connect with? What did I like seeing in stories? What did I wish I saw more of? And that's kind of where I came at Voice of the Ocean, which is my debut. I was a young, like, teen girl who read a lot of, like, these stories of these, like, very capable and, like, very stoic female main characters that were very, like, hardened, they were very strong, they were leading revolutions, okay? They were not like the other girls, right? And so I loved all these characters, but I do admit, like, when I was younger, I wanted to be like them, but I wasn't, and I think there was, like, that disconnect of feeling like, "Oh, well, I wish I was strong. I wish I was, capable of leading a revolution, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm just a girl." Like, and I was. And so I wrote, a story for a softer female main character who cries a lot, who has that exact feeling of seeing these iconic heroes of legends, of seeing people, that surround her that are more capable, that are more stoic and not relating to it and feeling a little lost from being so hyper emotional, so feeling like too much of a person,
Yeah.
and not connecting. And so that's kind of where I came at it, was like, I would have loved to read a book like that in the
Yeah.
summer. It's like got mermaids, it's got like romance and like magic and adventure and swinging across ships with ropes. But in the end, like she's kind of a girl in these situations, like doing the best with the skills that she has, but still feeling like sometimes I don't measure up and sometimes I surprise myself. And sometimes, like my skills that are more heartfelt can still be utilized in situations. And like the connections I make with people end up being like my strongest tools in a sense. Not to mean like connections are tools, but more to mean like they're
Yeah.
assets to the character throughout her journey. And so that's kind of where I went with in terms of like research, I guess, or like these
Right.
thoughts of like how to connect to readers. And it's just like where for me was the missing piece that I wish like I could have connected with when I was younger. And I do think that it's exciting to, as like a younger reader, to like look at all of these like stories and get to see yourself in all these other like adventures and things like that. I know I grew up on like the Magic Tree House and I was like
Yes.
obsessed. So that would be my like favorite summer. It was like a little adventure. I also love to read with my mom. Like when I got
Yeah.
a little too old for us to like read together, we would tend to read the same books and then we get to talk about them together. And that was always kind of fun. Or even just reading the same books as my friends, because then I get to talk about them there too.
I love both of those points. Start your own little book club. Like you don't have to put the pressure or the routine behind
Yeah.
it, but just especially now because Kelsey, we're I think similarly aged,
Sure.
but
Maybe.
like
Yeah.
like we're 30s. When we were kids, you couldn't just like text your friends, and so now it's very easy to be like, "Where are
Yeah.
you in the book?" You can send the DM, you can
Yeah.
send the whatever to just be like, "Okay, so we're both starting this now." Checking in tomorrow, and I think that brings some fun. And then on the parent side, the idea and the memory of like reading together or having your parent read to you or reading with you stands out so much in my mind. So I think that's a great place for like it runs the whole checklist of if you're this young, if you're somewhere in the middle, or if you're more looking to do things with your friends. Reading's cool, y'all. It's for everyone.
It's so fun. It's fun to feel like also you're putting yourself in that story, right? Like you get to live that life in a sense. So like you spent your summer, fighting dragons and becoming
Right.
a pirate.
And that's so magical. Now, Jamie, the same question to you, but I guess a little different twist. Your audience is why don't you tell me about your audience? Why don't you tell me about your books and the approach that you take to writing?
I think for me, well, because I write for, I mean, basically my books, if you look at what they're classified as, it's like ages 10 to forever.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
part of having a younger audience is that you have the kids, but then it's the teachers and the librarians and the parents who I hate the term gatekeeper because it sounds so ominous. Like, yeah, you shall not pass unless but it's like these are the people that filter it down to the kids. And so for me, I think my books they deal with hard topics, but with a lot of humor and heart. Like, my first book, Roll With It. Oh my gosh, where is it? Okay, here's the set now. But the first book,
Gorgeous.
I know, box set. Like, talk about book it and like child's dream. Like, you actually get
A
to have a
box
box
set.
set,
A
right?
box set, you're
Absolutely.
like,
I
ooh.
know. So, the books, it's like I think kids that are younger, the parents and teachers and everyone, they think like I think their natural instinct is we need to protect them a little bit. They're still young. Let's just, it'll be light, it'll be fun. But I think what I a lot of people forget is just because they're young, they're still going through all of the hard things that all of the grown-ups are going through. they just have limited resources of how to talk about it. But like they go home
Right.
to a house that has stuff going on, they deal with the stuff. And so I think for my age that I write for, they have to have an outlet to be able to talk about it. Like they have to
Yes.
have, and books are the way you do that. Books are the way you can talk about things in a safe space, and the context is safe. And so you can bring your real feelings to these fictional stories and have real conversations about it. My most recent book that actually just came out this month, it's about a girl who experiences a school shooting. And that's a hard topic. But guess what? They're going through active shooter drills at school.
Right.
I lost a dear
Yeah.
friend in a school shooting, and the book is dedicated to her. These are real things, but I think you can talk about them in a way that allows the conversation to stay on a level that is safe and good and healthy. Because if you don't talk about stuff, what's the point? I mean, books are
Right.
entertainment, but they're also there to help you experience the world in a way that you can actually emotionally process it. That's the whole point. So for me, that's kind of what I always end up going back to in my writing is what is the message of my book and how am I going to help the kids who really need this message?
Absolutely. That really resonates, the thought of we need to protect kids, but we need to give them an outlet. We need to give them the space to learn the tools, learn the words. If we're always
Mhm.
protecting, they aren't going to know how to safely manifest those feelings and emotions. And I mean, so much is going on every day, and you don't know what anyone's going home to, but
Mhm.
we need them to hear that conversation to not feel alone. So that's really incredible and very important. Now, to both of you, what got you started writing? I know, dangerous question.
It's funny because it's like I can't remember a time that I wasn't writing, like from the time I was tiny on. My mom was my fun fact, my mom was my librarian. She was the
Oh,
librarian in my school.
Oh.
I know, right? Book fairs were so fun because she would let me
bring
stack
back. I
in
want an
all the
adult book
books next
fair.
to her. I know, and we still get erasers that smell like fruits. Come on. Anyway, so I can't remember ever not writing, but I think like my senior year of high school, I wrote a play and they let me stage it and put it on for the school.
Oh, cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was so
That's
fun.
really cool.
But I think the thing that really flipped the switch and made me want to write for an audience, like an outside, bigger purpose kind of audience, is when I had my kids. Because then all of
Mhm.
a sudden the world is a place that you're going to send little people into. And I want to send out messages for my little people and other people's little people that would hopefully create change, and my son, who is 13 now, has cerebral palsy and he's in a wheelchair. And when he was touring his kindergarten classroom, because you go, before you start, you go and you do the tour. And we like
Yeah.
went through the library and I wheeled him through the library and there like weren't any books that with kids that looked like him on the cover. And like, how do you send a kid into school who feels like already they're not seen or understood? And it was
Yeah.
then that I was like, okay, so I guess I'm going to write the book because I'm not going to let him go through it and not have any way to process or have other people process his experience. And that's really what started it. I mean, I never stopped writing since I was little, but what actually sent it into like, let's have a direction, it was my kiddo.
Mm.
I mean, like, you know,
I love that. I love that. And does he ever collaborate with you? Do you ever bounce things off of him and just kind of go, how does this sound? What do you feel about this?
he loves to hear. So the newest thing, so he's mostly nonverbal. Okay.
Hmm.
So his receptive language is on target, but like he can't emote it. But
Sure.
his favorite thing to do now is to find mommy on YouTube videos of like public speaking events and watch them. So I'll be in one room and I will hear my own voice in the other room and he's laughing and I'm like, that's trippy. Stop. You got to
Mm.
stop that. That's messed up.
Well, I mean,
That's so
I'm gonna
cute
wave right
though.
now, and I hope that you're hearing us
Oh
in your
yeah,
home right now.
hi to future you.
He's
Yes. So to Jamie in
going.
the future, hello.
I'm already envisioning myself dropping a plate of something in the kitchen.
Right, as we talk to you directly through
As
your
it
TV.
will. The
Right. This is where
world.
should we give a message to do you want to give a message to your future self? Tell yourself to breathe or something
So
right
I'm gonna say, dear Charlie, fast forward.
Different video.
Oh my
Kelsey, how about
gosh.
you? What brought you into writing? I mean, you've been in the creative space and now you've taken a turn to the pen and putting the word out there.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote when I was little too. I
Yeah.
remember my first series was about an alien named Bob, and he lived on a planet called Rob, and he ate corn on the cob, and it was all rhyming, as you could probably tell.
Love it.
And I drew illustrations for it too, and I like bound it with like like little staples, and I like gave it to my mom, and I was like, there you
Aw.
go. Like, aren't I a professional now? So I wrote and it was creative in so many different directions. I would stage performances with my dolls, and I would get my, cousins or friends to film like Who Wants to Be a Wizard, and it was like a quiz show on like fantasy books. And then I would create like all kinds of different like really narratives. I made like a evil fairy queen movie with my friend where we wrote all the scripts and then we made all the costumes and everything. So I felt like creativity just took every direction, including writing, filming, all of it all the time. But once I started school, I really dove into like fan fiction. That was like my bread and butter. I was in
Okay.
the gutter in the streets with my friends, typing away in between classes, like fun. Mine was all lighthearted, but it was all like just like fun, like, characters and side stories and adventures and stuff. And then I think at a certain point towards the end of high school, I had a really fun creative writing class. It was my first creative writing class. And I actually just recently reconnected with the teacher on my book tour, which was so gratifying.
Oh,
And I remember I wrote like a fantasy retelling of Snow White and Rose Red. And it was like a really fun reversal of like a mashup of the story of Snow White and the story of Rose Red and Snow White. Where there's like a forgotten sister who you see like Snow White's story from her perspective. And it was such a fun class. I still love that story to this day. And I think it kind of made me clue into that fact that I really loved writing and creating my own worlds. But when I got into college, like I started double majoring in theater, acting, and in creative writing. And there came a point where I had to choose one or spend more time in school. And I was ready to kind of, get on the scene and start working. Cause especially in a lot of creative industries, but especially in acting, it kind of takes a very long time to develop a career. And I wouldn't want to be like waiting, to
you
start
don't want to be
that process.
behind.
Yeah, when I'm older, it just felt kind of silly, to do so in my mind at the time. So it kinda ended up being a crossroads where I gave it up and I was like, "This is not, in my cards. It's not like where I'm focused right now." I was living in Los Angeles, so it was just kinda like, writing, I don't need a degree to do. I could always just pick it up again. And I wrote web series that I never finished. I wrote a bunch of little things, but I kind of just let it go and time passed and I forgot. And then, COVID happened and I was in lockdown and an email came through from my office that I was working at the time. And they said they were going to do a writing group and like, that I could essentially like send in a submission to see if I was accepted because they were going to make it a small group. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. It felt like, oh, like this huge part of my soul that I had been like, I'd just let lay dormant for years was like ignited. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so fun. That's the only thing I want to do. And from there, it was just essentially like I couldn't stop. It was like I had finally like unearthed this dream that had been like denied and put on the
Yeah.
back burner for so long. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish this thing. I've always wanted to write a book and I'm gonna do it for me. And then slowly over the course of developing it, it became both a habit, but like an obsession. And also I started realizing like, oh, I think I'd want this to find legs. I think I'd want to put this in front of an audience and see how I do. And that's kind of where that journey took me. And today's kind of like essentially not the end point, but like the beginning of the next chapter of that, which is very exciting. But yeah, I never stopped reading, thankfully. I've always been an avid reader, even through the years that I like wasn't writing as much. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's been, we were second chance romance,
Yeah. Yes.
we were,
You
uh,
found
we
your
were,
way. Yeah, you
we
found
fought
your way back to each other.
childhood, yeah, childhood lovers and found our way back to each other when the time was right.
Exactly. Second chance romance for real. But that's so inspiring. It's the like you take the route that you think works for you, and no matter what, you kind of wind up back on your path. You figure out your
Yeah.
way there.
Yeah. It's fun that your truest passions never really leave you.
Yes.
They're kind of always there for you to pick back up and like they're never going to be disappointed that you left, right? You can always come back
Right.
to your creative passions and loves and to books.
Definitely. You can kind of feed the beast that you make your own.
Sure, yeah.
Now, looking at this space, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about representation and inclusion in children's lit. I think this is an amazing thing that we're seeing grow and change and evolve over the years, but I think it took us a long time to get to this point. For where you're working and what you're working on, how have you seen representation evolve in the genres?
In the space of time that I started writing for kids and now, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, if you just go back to like 2015, there were hardly any, like middle grade was almost a genre people didn't even know about.
It didn't even
It
exist
was
then, it
like
feels like.
children's picture book,
Yep,
maybe some chapter books, and then YA, then adult,
exactly.
and that's it.
Yep,
And so I think since that section has grown tremendously, and as a result, the representation within it has grown tremendously. I mean, I told you when we went and I toured Charlie's school, there weren't any books for him. But
right.
now more and more you see books with diverse cast of characters, and more importantly, they're not all the minor characters. They have
Yes,
the protagonists of all different everything, and they're well-rounded, and their story isn't just about the fact that they're in a wheelchair or whatever it is. Like that's part of them, but it's not the story of them. And I
right.
think that is the biggest shift with inclusion and diversity, is that not every story about this kind of person has to be about that one trait. It's showing more
Yeah.
well-rounded characters. And for me, that's the key. Because you're not reading a story about that diverse aspect of this person. You're reading about the person.
Right. You're looking for the nuance and the impact where you can hear like, "Oh, I didn't know about wheelchair assessments
Mhm.
in elementary and middle school, but I learned that because it was very naturally added to
Mhm.
this plot line because it is a part of everyday life." My
Right.
Yeah.
sister is a pediatric occupational therapist. I know a lot
There you
about
go.
assessments. But it's one of those things that it's not the story isn't hello, I am X and the only thing you will hear
Mm.
about is X. I am a complex individual. I have personality. I have this story. And so it's not being done anymore to check a box or like you said, Jamie, to be the side character or to be in the Scooby gang. It's the whole story. It's flushed
Yeah.
out.
I find that more and more, and I find it in the most interesting ways. Like I recently read a book about like I think she was like necromancer, and she had I think it was OCD, and but it was like a magic story. It's called Phantasma, and essentially like she has a voice that speaks in her head to her, and it's not necessarily like the main point of the story. Like that's not the main thing about her, but she does deal with like intrusive thoughts consistently throughout the story. I've read stories of main characters with like intense anxiety, which is something like I deal with. And seeing characters with that is like so vastly interesting. And it's exciting to see people bringing their full selves and also bringing characters to life that have like all these different textures, all these different personhoods to them, because it's finally feeling like it's reflecting like the world around us and not just like certain people's like identities and certain people's point of views.
Absolutely. We are seeing all parts of the self. I love what you said of like it is your full self you're bringing to the table. These characters are not watered down to sell one way or another. It is like, hey, this reflects for anyone who may be feeling this in the moment or who may live this way.
Yeah, and the differences aren't like a tragedy about them. That was like something
Mhm.
I think I found a lot like
Growing
growing
up for
up is
sure.
like especially like in queer writings, like a lot of times it was like this tragedy they had to deal with this because people couldn't understand them, and like
Right.
that's obviously a story that can be relatable and the thing that people do deal with, but it's not like who they are. It's not every story. It's not like if they were the hero, how would they deal with themselves? It's not going to be their main,
Right. It's not the worst thing
identifier.
right, it's not the only thing about me and the worst thing that's ever happened to me kind of thing. Like
Yes.
moving
Yeah.
away from that for sure.
Exactly.
Now to try to bring us full circle, how can we foster a love of summer reading? What is it about summer reading that could make a special tradition for kids and their found family, kids and their chosen family, kids and their whatever, their actual family? Like, how do we make this something that they want to connect with?
I think the thing that I am doing with my kids, and that I mean, I think this is what makes specifically summer reading so fun, is that it's the summer, and so you can do it anywhere. And so we do reading field trip. This sounds, I'm such a teacher, but where we will literally specifically, okay, pick your favorite book or whatever you have right now that's been sitting around on your bedroom floor, and we're gonna go pack a lunch and go to the park and read. Or we're going to go to Sonic and get ice cream and sit in the car with the windows down, and we're going to eat ice cream and we're going to read. Or we're going to go to the pool. It's always bribery. We're going to go to the pool and I'll buy you a slushie and we'll read, you know? And it's
But it
like,
works.
it
Hey, that's
works.
what the pizzas were. They were
Exactly.
That you're
bribery.
doing your own book
I'm
it.
doing
So
my own bucket.
really,
I
yeah,
will put if
bribery
I need to
key to
buy some
getting to.
stickers, I'm gonna buy some stickers. But it's kind of like do the field trip and read in different spaces. When I was a teacher, we took field trips to the botanical gardens and we did slam poetry out in the
Ooh,
gardens, because how
Oh,
much
that's
more
so
fun is it
cute.
to scream rhyme poems that you wrote
my
yourself in a
theater girl
garden,
heart would be
right? Yeah.
screaming for
Yeah.
that. I would be loving
And so I
it.
think changing up the location is huge. I also think the
Yeah.
cool thing about public libraries are the displays. And
Yes.
my library does the best. I mean, like you walk in the front and there's a theme display of all these books under a different theme on the table. And those are the best places to pick a book. We also have something called Lucky Day. And it's a shelf. I love Lucky Day, where it's like the books that are always on hold or the new releases that you can't get unless you're like 39th in line. But
Oh.
if it's the Lucky Day shelf, you can get it and you can only check it out for 2 weeks instead of three, and you have to return it. But
Mm.
if it's your lucky day and you feel like you win a prize just by getting the book, and it makes you want to read it faster. And so I
Yeah.
think going to the library and seeing those displays are a really good way to help kids get excited and to pick a book because they're already like made visually fun.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I love that your library calls it Lucky Day. That's also
Yeah.
what we call it in Libby. Uh,
Oh,
where
That's
really?
so cute.
yeah,
That.
yeah. So there's not a shelf so much. It's more the like your library might add an extra copy on like a really busy hold list, and if you're next, you get offered it. It doesn't. You can still borrow it the full length of time,
I
but
love it so much.
my physical library, I actually haven't looked to see what they call them now, but when I was shelving books, they were called sizzlers because they were too hot to stay on the
I
shelf.
love
And so,
that.
and so it was the same thing, only a Sizzler you couldn't renew, and they only gave you a week to get through that. So that would be like it would be the big
Spicy.
ones. Yeah. Oh yeah. You had to rip through that one. But I think that's so important. I love the idea. I'm always saying like change up your format in general when you're in a slump.
Mm.
But when
Yeah, I
it
love
comes
that.
to making it fun, I love the idea of, yeah, make it a field trip. It
Mhm.
can it can be camped for a day where sure we packed up a picnic and all we're doing is reading and or we'll read for an hour and we'll do a game or an activity or play for an hour, but it definitely has a good way to change it up.
I love that. I love that so much. I think mine would be what I always loved when I was younger and and even now, I loved like doing things with friends with other people and like getting to I was obsessed with like getting to take like photos and like writing things
Yeah.
like journaling it or like like vlogging it now or whatever like I did this thing where because I saw someone else on like TikTok do it where they and their friend had like a 24-hour readathon and it was like essentially a big sleepover. They came over like 11 in the morning and then we'd like have a little lunch and then we'd sit down and we'd read our books and then at a certain we'd set a timer for whatever we wanted
Yeah.
and then we'd at a certain point we'd stop and then we'd tell each other everything as if we're having like a gossip session. We'd be like, okay, so this is what happened in my book. And she'd be like, oh my God, that sounds so exciting. This is what happened in my book. And then we'd set another timer and we'd go again. And then we'd have like dinner together and we'd have a little sleepover. And then in the morning we'd wake up and then we'd keep reading and we just read and had meals and chatted. And like that was my whole sleepover. And this is an adult thing that I did with my friends. But I also
Yes.
did that when I was younger too. My friend would come over, we would hang out, we'd read books, we'd play video games, we'd chat about the books that we'd been reading. And I think it's that like community kind of feeling of
Hmm.
like and also about like posting about it like make it cool. I feel like the thing that I loved jumping on when I was young as a teen and what I still am addicted to is like trends and like things that everyone else makes look so fun. Like you
Yeah.
just describing having a day out sounds like so much fun and would make a perfect vlog. And maybe I'm just the digital girly because I am that way in my work but just like in general but I do find like that's the way to make it cool or exciting and accessible. I find I'm a very visual person and teens are online. So just like, making it a fun thing of like, yeah, we can like take photos and like read and hang out and we can chat and making it social and like super fun. That's like my perfect
No, I
summer
love
reading
that.
aesthetic.
It's so perfect because it's like, yeah, think about it like content. The
Yeah.
the
Like
kids
get that
love the
fuzzy
content.
blanket.
Mhm.
Get that fuzzy blanket. Get your little like book basket. They're the
Yep.
boo baskets from
Yeah.
get your book basket, put your book in there and fuzzy socks and a candle and like hang out with your bestie and swap stories even if you don't read the same book. I feel like I've read a book or two from her just for her being like and they're all thrillers and I'm like a nervous girl. So I'm like, "Ooh, tell me more."
I can't read it, but I can listen to you talk about it.
Yes, I like this telephone game we've got going on. I feel like I know that book.
I love this. It gives us something for, hello to my usual listeners and watchers, even if you do not have kids, even if you are like me and you just love YA middle grade Rex and that's what you read half the
Yeah.
time anyway. This is still something we can do. Me and my
Yes.
best friend are absolutely now going to take PTO on the same day. And she's gonna come here. We're gonna get cozy, read completely separate books, and then
Yes.
check in and be
Get some
like,
wine. It's
yep,
amazing.
check in, be like, this is what's going on. And then before we go to Texas Roadhouse, because we got to get the rolls.
Yes. Go out to dinner. Read the
Exactly.
books. Bring
Yes,
them.
right.
Read
Why
out
not
of
read there? Who
Now we've got
cares?
a road trip. We're combining the
We're putting them, I was gonna say we start the day at the botanical gardens
Well,
because we
that
have a
that's
we have a
like
beautiful one
now that
here.
I'm like, I gotta do my idea, but we do gotta take it out. We gotta take it on the road. We go out to Betsy brunch. We
Exactly.
bring our books. We go to the botanical garden. We bring our books, and we get little photos of like where the book went throughout the day with us.
Right. Oh,
And
I
then
love that.
anytime anyone asks you what you're doing, you give your little book report. Well, let me tell you what I'm
Yes.
doing. This is what
Do
I'm
you
doing,
have
and this is
five
this.
to 10 minutes for me to tell you all about the book I've been reading?
Exactly. See, this is perfect. I think both work individually for our kids to have a great time And to
Mhm.
start an exciting summer reading experience, I think that works beautifully at all ages. And it's something you can grow with. And then for those of us who are kids at heart or who just love fun, then we can combine them together and do it for
Yes.
Mhm.
ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many different, like, ideas and trends and things like that going on in the internet now. I
Yeah,
think it just takes that step to be like, "Oh, let's do it." Like, let's put it on the calendar, get it done. Because like,
right.
I think that's always the barrier to entry, I think, for a lot of busy people is, like, setting
You
aside
just have
that
to make
time.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, before I let you both go, because I could talk to you both forever, I think we could gab the day away. I want to make sure everyone has a space and time to share their final thoughts on summer reading, make any, exciting last minute pitches for things for all of our aged readers. And if you'd each like to take a moment to share any projects you're working on or upcoming releases, things to promote, and of course, where the folks can find out more from you.
Well, I will just say real quickly. So this is the book. Please pay attention. Is what just came out this month, and I've been touring, doing speaking events. And I'm gonna do more in the fall because summer you get to take a break from that, which is nice. Everyone gets a break, and then in the fall, my arms are not long enough. In the fall, this is my newest book coming out called Schooled. And I am
Love it.
so excited. Okay, y'all will giggle at this because it crosses 2 age groups. So, this is about a kid whose dad signs him up for an experimental middle school set on a college campus. So, it's him and all these kids are kids of professors, and they start an experimental middle school on so they have, like, the cards to swipe to go into, like, the Munchie Mart and they
Oh.
live in the dorms, but they're in middle school. And so
Oh,
imagine
wow.
12-year-olds on a college campus getting to, like, choose electives and sit in on classes and make up their own courses.
That
It's
sounds
gonna be chaos,
amazing.
That is
and it's gonna be
interesting.
lawless, and it's gonna be hilarious. Yes, that is graffiti on the front because they do get in some serious trouble. Um, but that's my newest one that's coming out in the fall, and, I'm really excited, just, like, y'all have this whole conversation has got me really excited for summer reading because it's the most relaxing time to read, right? Because
Yes.
everything
Yeah.
slows down and you get to really I feel it's like you get to not that you can't do this all year, I don't know why it feels this way in the summer, but it's like you really get to choose the books that you really, really, really wanna read, 'cause, like,
Yep.
Mhm.
the sky's the limit kind of thing, and so for me, I think that's the best part of summer reading is, like, it's supposed to be fun, like, the entire goal of it is to be fun. So you want to, like,
Yeah.
eventize it as much as possible, and I think that's the key to making summer reading more enticing is to make it a party for whatever you're reading. You know what I
Make it
mean?
something that we look
Yeah.
forward to.
It's
Yeah.
Go
special.
go
It's summer
find
reading.
exactly, and go find, like, author events in like, in your area and go listen to people read out loud and kinda do things that you wouldn't do because you don't make time for it when it's cold and dark.
So true when we're in our
Yes.
caves.
Yeah.
And then Kelsey, what about you?
Well, you can find me everywhere online with my username Kelsey Dangerous. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, wherever. I also recently just debuted my novel. Let me grab it too. My debut novel, Voice of the Ocean, is a Little Mermaid retelling meets Pirates of the Caribbean for YA audiences. It's got found family, a bit of a forbidden romance, a sprinkling of enemies to lovers, like, swashbuckling good times, all kinds of, and a dog with plot armor, which is always very important to have. And I'm really excited for people to be reading this summer. It's, like, so perfect. It's all, like, sirens and water and ocean, and it takes place in the early summer too. So there's, like, that sense of, like, adventure and, getting out there and things warming up, and I think what I'm so excited for is like myself to try to like slow down. I think I forget to do so. I'm always like
Yeah.
in the machine of like, working and being a professional. And I'm not necessarily like I was around people that have like that schedule of like summertime.
Hmm.
All of it seems the same to me. So it's exciting to see people putting this on their summer reading list and for me to like remind myself to like have more fun with the summer reading. And in terms of future projects, I will be like around doing hopefully more events very soon. I just finished up my very first book tour like last week for this and working on book 2 of Voice of the Ocean to be announced officially at some point.
So exciting.
Yes.
Well, Jamie, Kelsey, thank you both so much for being here.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so much
having
for
me.
having
Oh my
me.
gosh, what an honor. I love Libby, so it's so cool.
Well, and now is where I'll say I will pass it on to future Joe in the next segment. Well, Julie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Oh, I love having you here. You were touring. You just got back from tour, if I'm correct.
Yes, yeah, I was out for basically 2 weeks for the Thrashers. One official week for me, and then a second week for my dear friend Susan Lee, whose YA book, The Romance Rivalry, came out last week. Yeah.
I love it. Did you have any like cities or dates that stand out to you that you go, "Oh, this was the night"?
It was all really, really lovely. The bookstores that I had never been to before were the ones that kind of stick out to me, which thankfully for
Yeah.
this tour, because it was my first YA, there were bookstores that primarily do YA instead of
Yes.
adult romance. So Annabelle's Book Club in LA was just a delight. And then I got to go to the new bookstore, the New Romantics in Orlando,
Yes.
which is so lovely. I don't even think I got to go to the bookstore because it was a 300-person event offsite, so
Like you'll take it, but that's the
yeah.
the tough thing of like, oh, but I want to see the store.
Yeah.
So since we are talking like summer reads today, what was it like debuting YA? I mean, you are well known in the romance space, in the adult contemporary romance space, but now to kind of like dive in YA, what has the reception been like? What was it like writing The Thrashers?
The reception's been so lovely. I had hoped that my adult romance readers would come with me over to YA. I know
Yep.
it's not only a different age group, it's a different genre because it's not YA romance, it's YA thriller with a little side of romance.
All the best ones have
Exactly.
it.
I refuse to write something where there's not a romance subplot. I can't imagine that being, I just can't imagine it.
Well, and you want to bring your audience with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I know our dear friend Emma, she was the one who said, like, Joe, have you heard The Thrashers is coming? And I was like, girl, I recommended it in a recording today, and I'm dying to talk to Julie about it. And she was like, it has everything. It's what you expect. It's like,
Yeah.
but also so different. What was it like to go into thriller, like, and
Yeah.
especially YA thriller? How do you keep your voice but shift it to the demographic? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, I was really happy that both Wednesday Books in the US and Harper Fire in the UK, because I have two editing teams, were they were really they were okay with the language, the adult content in a way, as adult as YA can get away with, right?
Right.
But I was really pleasantly surprised that I didn't have to tone down mainly the language because I mean we
Yeah,
all know we've all been teenagers. It's second nature to to
absolutely.
throw the F-bomb in there. I was re-listening to the audiobook a couple weeks ago to I always like to someone will be like, I love the audiobook, and I'm like, I haven't listened to it yet, so it's like I want
Right.
to like just kind of be
Like,
with it.
oh, I
And
should I should know what that experience is
I should,
like.
yeah. There was a for the Forget Me Not audiobook, people were like, I love the song that plays at the top. What's that song? And I'm like, girl,
Didn't know
hell
there
if I
was
know.
one.
Yeah. And so I had to listen and finally someone like Shazammed it through their phone and yeah, so we found it. It's a great song. But I was listening to it and I was kind of laughing at how many F-bombs there are in not even in dialogue in like Jodie's inner monologue. And I was like, yeah, I mean, this is how
But
I
that's
would
the
say it
teen.
too.
That was yeah, that's exactly how I
Yeah.
thought, how I felt, how I
Yeah.
talked then. It's a little different
Exactly.
now, but
Yeah, I
not
know.
much.
Maybe a little more censored because you're aware of the people you're talking to. Yeah.
Yes.
So thankfully the different age group, it was really just about um in that way, it was only about like chipping away at characters' confidence and
Mm,
building different walls for different things. And the thing that I love most about YA is that the stakes are already at a 10 in just like
yeah.
my nail chipped and promise tomorrow. And like I'm like, hey, if it was book tour and my nail chipped, I would also be at a 10. Like there, like
Yes.
I understand these things, right? Like we have our comparative
We
things.
do.
Yeah, so I love that the stakes are already at life or death. And what I really enjoy about writing YA is putting life or death circumstances on top of existing life or death stakes. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
was gonna
that's
say you're already everything is life or death, and then you're actually getting to make it life or death. There is a
yeah.
killer. There is a
Yeah,
XYZ.
you're fighting for your life. Yeah.
Oh,
And so that's what I've always enjoyed about YA. And I didn't love horror in when I was younger. Like I've never seen I Know What You Did Last Summer all the way through. I remember I was at a sleepover at one of my best friend's house, and her older sister came home from seeing the movie and was like, sit down, I'm gonna describe the entire thing to you. And that's just such like a formative experience that I feel like I've seen the movie. So I've never been a horror fan, but what I love about thriller is that it's that piece of it while you're also trying to like solve a mystery, because sometimes I think horror is just about like who do I think is going to outlive this,
hmm.
whereas thriller is a little bit more like it when you're doing it intellectually is like who do I think the killer is and why, like who and
Yeah.
why. And then and so I
You have
just
less
like
of the supernatural to lean on. Like the killer
exactly.
could be anyone because in horror, the rules are,
Yeah.
sure, it's set in reality if the killer is still just a person, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of air quotes flying around. But with thriller, you have to look at like, right, who is the killer? What is their motive? And how many people can I logically take to the end of this
Yeah.
ride?
Yeah, exactly. There's a little more safety in thriller. You don't have to kill your darlings.
You don't have to kill like everyone, but one, maybe two people if you're
Yeah,
lucky.
final girl. Yeah, exactly. Um, so that was, in terms of like the genre shift, the age shift, I just felt I've always wanted to write high stakes young adult stories. And so it really was, Thrashers has actually been written longer than Forget Me Not. So like if I got my agent with my adult romances, and we started submitting to editors the adult romances. But if I hadn't got my agent with my adult romances, and if like I would have been submitting to YA agents next. And
Okay.
I had like 50 rejections. Like I was at the end of the pile. And when I met my agent Gaia Banks, who knew me from fandom days, which is really just a lovely full circle thing. Um, I told her I was like I also want to write YA, and she says I'm not as familiar there, but we can take a ride.
Oh, we can get there. Let's
Exactly.
let's
Yeah.
get the adult romance
Yeah.
out first.
Exact.
Get the establish.
That was her exact plan. She was like, it will be a little easier to sell you in YA. She's kind of like, particularly for her, because then she can just have stats and numbers, right?
She can just say
Um,
audience. Here we
yeah,
go.
exactly. So, but I really feel like I have more stories for young adult thrillers just brewing in me than even romances, because romances
I feel like it's so fun to think of the large moments, like the meet cute, and for me, what's the first intimate scene? That's my favorite
Yeah.
part. But then like trying to find all those circumstances of like how do we fall apart? How do we stay apart? You know, those things I have less developed plot ideas for romances than I do for like, you know, I have like 5 YA thrillers that I want to write.
And that's so exciting to me because I love to see the like, oh, I have two separate parts of my brain working right now. Like, yes, I can write and craft these beautiful contemporary romances. I can give you that, but I can also give the kids the quality of my writing in the YA space. And as a YA reader through and through, like I refuse to stop because now there's so much of it out there. I'm like,
There's
I'm
so
making up
much.
for what was lacking when I was a kid in all the
Mm-hmm.
YA and middle grade I read today. But also, like, it's there. It's
Yeah.
like you said at the beginning, nothing changed for you. There were some things you had to tackle perspective wise, but you didn't have to tone down your writing. You didn't have to tone down your energy. It's still Julie Soto is writing this book. Like, nothing
Yeah.
is different about it in that sense. And that's so exciting. So I hope your audience as well is like, your existing audience is clamoring to join me in the YA space and
Yeah.
go like, here we go, take us for the ride.
Yeah, exactly. It's been really nice.
I love it. Well, to take a strange step sideways, thinking about summer reading, do you have any summer reading memories that stand out? Did you participate in any programs? I think of like public library
Yeah.
summer reading, Book It, all of that.
Book it is such a familiar phrase. Do you know what I mean? Like you're just
Yeah.
like, I mean, because like high school was yesterday for me, Joe. So
Absolutely. I know.
I
You just
just
graduated. I'm sorry to ask you to relive the
I
recent
just
past.
yeah, exactly. Everything is just so recent.
Yes.
So Book It is so familiar to me. If like someone were to remind me what the program was, I'd be like, yes, Book It. But I thankfully I went to schools that required summer reading in between years, and so I have just like these memories. I feel like it was one of my favorite books that year in high school, and I don't remember if it was like Gatsby or a separate
Hmm.
piece or I know Tale of Two Cities we did during the school year and Pride and Prejudice, but like some of my favorite books were like on the summer reading list, and then
Yes.
you have to be like, hold on, where's the 30 people I get to chat with about this? You know, like, why am I sitting here
Yes.
alone?
Right. It's such
Yeah.
a different experience. So, were you already a reader? I'm assuming yes, but were you a kid who was already
You know, in certain ways, but I was also a theater kid. So
Okay,
the energy was going somewhere
to
so
different
specific.
places?
And and like that's also why like people are like, who your favorite music artist? I'm like the original cast recording of Les Mis. Like I'm like,
Right.
I don't I'm so sorry. I don't know who any of the people are on the Now CDs from when I was a kid. You know, it's like
Correct.
I had
As
the
I'm like,
Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. Yeah.
as my immediate thought goes to, but who do you prefer in the Moulin Rouge cast? Are you an Aaron Tveit fan? Like,
Oh my God. Oh, I love him so much. But I loved him in Next to Normal. So like
uh-huh.
I'll always be
There's
he'll
the real
always
fan.
yeah, exactly. Like I just thought he was incredible in that. So but
I
God,
love that though. I was the
yeah.
kid who was always reading, and so when those summer reading lists came out, like I love hearing for you that you're like, I was grateful that existed. Where for me, I had more the experience of like, I'm already reading. Why are you making me read?
Yeah, it was nice to be told what to read sometimes, and it kind of reminds me nowadays of influencers and Bookstagram and Book Talk and
Oh
just
my
like
gosh, yeah.
but also there's that promise of community at the end of the tunnel in that way. Like,
Yes.
here's a list of things you should read, and when you're done, guess what? You can have someone to chat with about it.
Yeah, kind of like bringing back a book club of sorts, like a
Yeah.
forced someone kind of put this together for us. Let's get excited and talk about it.
Yeah.
It's tough though. So like now that you have like this building and growing YA audience waiting for your next book, which I'll maybe ask you if we can expect another YA one and when. how would you convince kids to pick up more books in the summer? I mean, we know it's important. We know there's the summer slump that just like stepping away from school, it's mainly because they don't, not as many kids are reading because of so many reasons of access. Like the school library isn't available. There isn't a parent to get them to the public library, like, so of course,
Yeah.
yay, Libby, but
Yeah.
it not reading, less reading has such an impact and it makes getting back into it harder. How would you pitch books are cool to like your audience? How would you invite in the hesitant reader?
Yeah. I think it really comes down to programs like Libby and places where you can find ebooks for to borrow them for free, because it's like I also, when I was a teenager, I was reading fan fiction, which is just
Yes.
one click and I'm there, and I don't have to, there's no gatekeepers, there's no bookstores.
No
And
barriers.
yeah, and so I feel like, and it was also all, I mean, back then it was on the desktop computer, because
Oh yeah.
high school was yesterday. High school
High
was
school was
yesterday.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Your parents just had to have a computer in the family room. That's all.
Exactly.
We had a computer room too.
Yeah, exactly. Mine was in the dining room, and I had to like do like the clear the browsing history at the end, and yeah, the
Anyone
whole
reading
thing.
this with me at home?
Yeah. But I feel like there's so many places now where if you're slightly interested in books, you're probably seeing them talked about on Bookstagram and Book Talk. And there's books that you're being introduced to that people are raving about around you. And I feel like just reminding people there's like a community on the other side of that book. Like
Yes.
there's a group of people who, I think of like Tracy Dion and
Mhm.
you can wait with people for years for the next thing, or
Yep.
Winds of Winter. Like you can wait with this community for years for the next thing, and then when it happens, you get to be with people. So I feel like
Yeah.
maybe finding like book one of a series that isn't going anywhere, because that's a sad part on my end, on readers' end,
Yeah.
when like a series goes away sometimes.
Comes to a close,
Yeah.
right?
But like find a series that isn't done yet, which is like so against my fan fiction rules.
I know.
because you don't want that work in progress, but
You don't want to be waiting for the next chapter to drop. Like,
exactly. There are some fanfics that I've been waiting 10, 15 years, and
oh
you're just
yeah,
like,
you're like,
they might have passed away.
maybe she'll be done with her shift at Bath and Body soon to give me the
Maybe.
update. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
That was what the last thing said was,
The-
sorry, I got
Gotta go to
into a
work.
car accident. Yeah,
Oh my God,
exactly.
yes.
Sorry,
The
I had a
drama.
baby. Yeah. And I had a baby, but I should have the next chapter up tomorrow. And then it's like been 20 years, and you're like, I understand.
How's your
had a
kid doing?
baby.
Like,
Yeah. Are they in college? Yeah.
Right. Give me that story now, please.
Yeah. But I feel like there's such a good like find a series that isn't over, so that you can join a group of people who get so excited when it does come to a close, or when the next one comes. It's like TV, which I know looks so different for kids these days, honestly, because especially with Netflix dropping all the episodes at once, but like Hulu has like the space of a week, and HBO has the space of a week. But it's like that in the same way that like White Lotus took over pop culture for 8 weeks. It's like this is what books do as well.
Right.
Just not as loud for a lot of people. Yeah.
And I think it goes back to what you were saying before of like that at the end of the summer, you knew you had 30 people to talk to. Those spaces exist online. You can go to Book Talk, you can go to Bookstagram, but there's also Discords and Reddits and all sorts of groups of people out there. And I think making that community might really make this special for you. Like it's an open and welcoming space. Like, yeah, every fandom, every community has its problems. Like nowhere is perfect, but
Oh yeah.
but find the series you're loving. Find an author that you want to like hitch your cart to and go through their collection and talk with the fans online. Like talk with your fellows. I think that can make it really special. We also talked in the earlier portion of this segment about uh, finding a way to make what is the word? Oh my gosh, like a tradition around
Oh
summer
yeah.
reading. And
Like a
so
ritual or yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah, how
yeah.
do we make a ritual? And both Jamie and Kelsey were saying that like, oh, well, Jamie will take her kids on like a field trip. And so
Yeah.
all we're doing is we're going somewhere with our books and we're going to read there. And Kelsey was talking about how she's had like invited a friend over for a sleepover. And it's truly just like, come over, bring your books, and we're going to do nothing but read. And then we'll book in breaks. We'll talk about what we just read, digest it. Do you have anything like that you would suggest? What would your perfect book date or book vacation look like?
I have one of my closest friends, Amanda. She reads very fast and she has her own like book rituals in place in terms of like, she used to tell me that she like wakes up and does like cooks breakfast while reading, drinks her coffee while reading, and then goes to her 9 to 5. And I'm like, no, no, no. Who are you?
I am an early bird. Like I get up at 5:30
Oh,
and
yeah.
like shower, coffee, get ready for the day, but I almost consider it like meditation. I don't
Yeah.
bring anything else into that. Like
Yeah.
like that first half hour before I start my day at 7 is
Yeah.
just me. Like dog's still in bed sleeping. Like I
The
am
dogs are
fully.
still sleeping. I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
proud of them.
My baby boy, he does not get up for anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So,
great.
but
Yeah.
that's, so I can't imagine getting up early
No,
and diving right in. And I'm
I
always
know.
listening to an audiobook. Like,
Yes, that's one thing is like choosing audiobooks over podcasts or over the radio in longer car rides or just traffic. But Amanda and I have been talking about one because even her, she's like, there's so many more books I want to read. I'm like, shut up. You read like
you read 20 this week alone.
yeah, she
You're
really
fine.
does. And she's not an audiobook person. So I know she truly eyeball reads and like and she loves the texture of books and stuff. So we've been talking about taking a uh reading retreat, do a 3-day weekend and bring like 3 books and they're all different from each other. And then while we make dinner and eat dinner, we're discussing stuff, but I just think that's such a fun idea because so few of us these days can actually put the laptop or not bring the laptop
Uh-huh.
on a long weekend like that.
Right.
And
What if all of the
yeah,
what ifs pop up and it's like, leave it at home, pack it away. But
exactly.
I also love this because it's like, well, yeah, I want to make sure that for our listeners who have kids, they can get some thoughts and some recommendations around this.
Yeah.
I know the audience is people just like us who don't have kids and aren't worried about, how do we beat the slump? But we can have our own slumps. And this is also that, like, what are we doing to enrich our friendships, enrich those relationships, and also help us feel better about reading and decrease some of the mental clutter going on?
Yeah, exactly.
So plan a book retreat with your besties. Like
Yeah.
whether it's a trip to the botanical gardens for a day or it's a long weekend somewhere, it sounds so cute.
Yeah.
And now, Julie, as you've been getting into the YA space, I know you are a longtime YA like lover and fan, but
Mhm.
do you have any book recs of your own that you'd throw out there, or any that come to mind that you
Man.
think of like
Yeah.
this is either a hidden gem or this is a must read?
I mean, on the mind right now is Susan Lee's Romance Rivalry, which is
Hmm.
so, so good. It just came out last week. And it's about 2 book bloggers in like their first year of college. And like
Love it.
they're like dating by tropes, which is really nice. Like each chapter is a different trope. And there's even a
Fun.
secret baby chapter, which is how she got that in there.
Dang.
She's a beast. Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. And then what else am I? There's so many things that I want. You know what I'm really excited to read is Elizabeth Worley's new one, thriller, where it seems like like the lead character is the villain.
Ooh, love
Which is
that.
just always very fun. I want to make sure I get the title right. I'm gonna grab it real quick.
Yeah.
Olivia. Um, oh, and all of Olivia Blake's YA under Alexine.
Yes,
Is
so
so
good.
good. Yeah. Olivia Worley's book is So Happy Together. And it's
Yes.
she likens it to you a little bit, and I'm like,
Oh,
there we go. That's what female
sold.
protagonist you. Yeah. Where you're just like, I think Joe's the villain. But
I think you might be. Yeah.
so that's one that I absolutely cannot wait to dive into. But yeah, there's so much. And then of course, like YA fantasy is like its own beast in a
Oh
way.
my gosh. Yeah.
And just like there's so much good stuff out there. I can't even pull them up in my brain. It's
Oh, and of course, I mean, I put you on the spot. Like,
yeah.
that's, I forget everything I've ever read the
Yeah.
moment someone asks me about a book. So I
Yeah.
get it. But that's like the greatest sentence to hear. There's so much good stuff out there. Like, there is so much YA. Where, like, there's middle grade, there's YA, there's new adult, like, all of these subgenres and age ranges. It's a dream. Like,
Yeah.
we are living in the best of times and the worst of times
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Yeah.
But for books, it's a great landscape developing. So I
Yeah.
I love to see it. Now, before I let you go, I want to make sure you have time to let the listeners know where to find you online, promote anything upcoming, drop any hints or things forthcoming, whatever you want to share.
On all platforms, I'm Julie Soto Writes. No punctuation. Punctuation is for the week. And also, there's a really great photographer who stole the at Julie Soto way before I did. I'm like, great. At least you're good at what you do.
Right. At least
I know. And she stole juliesoto.com too. And I'm like, you were so on top of this. I'm so proud of you.
at least the work is good though. At least like and
Exactly.
at
At
least it's
least you're
being
good.
used. And you're not
God.
like, oh,
Yeah.
this account is dead and they
I
still
know.
have my name.
Yeah, I want to get so famous that like that like my PR team has to buy her out. You know what I mean?
That Instagram just reaches out and goes, "Hey, here you go."
Yeah. Hey, you know what? We've deactivated at Julie Soto.
We're actually putting periods between your username and giving it to Julie Soto.
Exactly. Yeah. So Julie Soto Writes, that's my website. That's all platforms. And Thrashers just came out 2 weeks ago, but 6 weeks from today, I got my next book out. Rose and Chains is out July 8th. I'm not sure. Can you, you know what? I
That
haven't counted. It might be 7 weeks, but it
that's okay
feels like
because
6 days.
when this airs, Rose and Chains will have come out like a week ago, I think.
Nice.
So
Okay.
you can get it
Perfect.
now. Y'all don't even
Oh
have
my
to wait.
gosh, you guys, welcome to the party. Yeah. Rose and Chains is my first adult fantasy, and it is the first in a trilogy. It is adult and it is dark, and there are trigger warnings on my website, so please check those. But I'm very excited for it. We have gorgeous special editions from all these book boxes, which I'm sure they're all gone by the time this airs. But but it's a new fantasy world, and two countries that have always lived in kind of peace, and now we're no longer at peace. It's very close to my heart. It's going to be kind of a new phase of my career in a way, because writing a trilogy over the course of several years is definitely a new thing for me.
It's a shift for sure.
Yeah. So that's out, and then I do have more YA thrillers coming. My next YA thriller, as far as I know, is not in Thrasher's universe, but we are hoping that there are more books in Thrasher's universe. So yeah, my next YA thriller, I don't know when it's out, but it is actually geared more towards four sisters, and there's only one of them left, quote unquote. And it actually will feel a tiny bit more like a YA thriller, because there is a there are murders and dead bodies and and things, whereas the Thrashers was tracing back a teen suicide. So trigger warnings for all.
But it's just exciting. Like you're doing what you want. You're doing what you love. And you've got something at this point now for literally everyone. If you are a YA girly, if you are the adult fantasy girly, like it's
Yeah.
all there. If you I'm like, man, I've got so much Julie Soto to read now and coming up. So I'm set for the next few years as the
Yeah.
releases. But here you go. If you're looking for an author to follow, with every release out coming, oh darn YA readers, you've got it.
Oh man, what a shame. Yeah.
Aw shucks, what will we do?
Yeah.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today and share about the Thrashers and your summer reading experience.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. This was great.
And now, here is the awkward transition to the next segment. Well, hey, y'all, it's that time in the episode where I take us on a little break before our next segment. Today, since we're talking summer reading, I wanted to highlight a few great filtering options that will help you and the kids in your life find the books you're looking for faster and have an overall smoother experience looking at juvenile content in Libby. First, I wanted to shout out read-alongs. These are amazing books that are narrated with a follow-along highlight on the page. So you are going to see in that ebook visual the beautiful illustrations that you expect to see with books, everything from Pete the Cat to so many more options. But you'll also see the text light up as the narrator reads the book to your kiddo. This helps kids learn early how their eyes should flow and track through the page and sentences while reading, but they get that brilliant narration to guide them through it. So let's hop into Libby and find ourselves a read along. All right, here we are in my demo library. Similar to my tip the other day when we were looking for audiobooks by duration, I am going to stay on that library page and I am going to go into my filter options. From here, I just need to head to format and I can choose read alongs. Again, every library is different. Every digital collection is curated by the library that it belongs to. So this is my demo library. It'll look a little different than yours will, but you'll find all sorts of great content from your library. All right, I am looking at all of the read-alongs in my library's digital collection. Just like we looked at the other day, we can always come in here and add additional filters. So whether you want to add an availability filter or an audience filter, I'll just throw in juvenile. And then you can even come through and add additional subjects. If you are just looking for fiction or you're looking for fantasy, remember the more of these you add, the more you are going to narrow your search results down. So now we're only looking at 55 titles, and you can add additional things along the way. So you can scroll through and find a book that you want to borrow. So maybe your kid would love to hear about Use the Force. You can borrow, and there you go. When you open up a read-along for the first time, you will notice it's a slightly different experience than what you might be used to seeing in Libby's Reader. You will see a play button in the bottom of the screen, similar to what you see when you are listening to an audiobook. Once you press play, you won't have to do anything else. The pages are going to flip for you automatically, and the narrator will read everything. Once you're in the meat of the story, you will see those highlights start happening for the sentences on screen. Very exciting, I know. So that is a read along. That's how you can find them. While we're in there, I just want to point again, age filters. And I also wanted to talk about pinning filters here. So I mentioned at the start of this that I wanted to show you how you could make Libby easier for the kid in your life while they are going through and enjoying and looking for books. If you are setting up a device for a kid in your life and you want to make sure that they don't have to hunt through all of the amazing content that's available for everyone in Libby, if you just want them to be able to open up their tablet and go, oh, there's my books, I'm going to check out this one, we can pin some filters. So I'm going to come up to where it says juvenile. I'm going to pin that. And so usually when you're in a search, those filters up at the top, whatever you apply, is only there for the search you're in. So if we went back to the library tab, we would not be looking at read-alongs or fantasy. We would just be back at the library. But since I have pinned that juvenile filter, as I scroll through, you are now going to see that some of these curated collections have changed on the main page. We are now only seeing either juvenile curated lists or titles in these lists that the juvenile filter applies to. So as you scroll through, there was still this 2024 New York Times best-selling list here, but now you're only seeing the juvenile content in it. Same thing, there were new audiobooks in Spanish in this list in all age ranges, but now we're seeing only the over 70 titles that fall in the juvenile range. So now, whatever your kiddo does as they are working their way through, whether they search for a book, whether they are scrolling through this main page for a recommendation, they will only see juvenile content available. So it makes it nice and easy if you want them to have an easy way of going through without getting frustrated or lost and going, this book is definitely not for me. There are no pictures on these pages. There are too many words. It's too long, whatever it might be. You can do that just by pinning a filter. And I'm going to go back up to the top. Just in case you are sharing that device with your kid, you may not want to have it pinned, or when you are going to look for a book, make sure you come in and choose Remove Filter. That way you can now see all of the titles that are available, or your searches won't be thrown off by that pin. Now with that, let's head over to some summer reading recommendations. Well, hey everyone, school's out for summer, and hopefully you're having an amazing time on your break so far, and you're reading some crazy good books. Hopefully you're enjoying your time sitting under the stars. Whatever you think of for your perfect summer, I hope you're having it right now. This is the part of the show where our guest hosts give you book recommendations to absolutely pile up your to-be-read list. So here are some of those recs for you who like or are looking to share middle grade and young adult books. We're recording this in two parts, so in the magic of editing, this will look no different to you, or it will be very seamless. But right now, up first, I have Carmen at Tomes and Textiles and Cece at CCUing_. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So much for having us, Joe.
I'm so glad whenever we get to record, because the two of you just bring so much good energy and amazing books that I cannot wait to read, or I'm excited to tell you that I have already read. Before we dive into your recs, what comes to mind when you think of summer reading? Do you have any memories that immediately flood in? Did you participate in your library's summer reading programs? Does your library have an adult program you're still in today?
So I am a naturally competitive person, and this must have started during summer reading with my library. As well as like book it and getting pizzas, but that's another story, another day. But yeah, I remember just like trying to beat and like raise up the levels of summer reading. I have tried to get my local library to have a program for adults. And in fact, last year they gave out t-shirts to the kids. And I was like, please, if I participate, like I'll read double the amount. And they're like, adults still don't get t-shirts, Carmen. You can participate and there are goals, but you're not going to get a present. And I was like,
That's so unfair.
I know.
That is not fun.
I know, but I do get it. I mean, like, let the kids have all like the cool swag, you know? So I still do participate as an adult. I just don't get cool stuff, but you know, I'll treat myself to a little something if I make my pages goal.
I mean, our adult summer reading program usually gives away like tickets if they get them donated for like sports games and all sorts of different things. So your library, share those notes, up the ante. And I love that you brought up Book It. In segment 1 of this episode, Jamie Sumner also shared that Book It was her big stretch goal the whole time, and then we divulged into, does it still exist and how do we get into it? Cece, what about you?
Definitely, I was a big participant in all of my summer reading programs. I especially went for them as a kid because I was homeschooled through most of elementary school. So it was kind of my only access to different information about different people. And it just meant that I had so much more freedom to explore. I feel like summer is when I got to know my little corner of my local library better than anywhere in the world. Just if there was a new book, I could tell.
I love that. I love that feeling of like, oh, this is new. This was just on the shelf. This wasn't here yesterday. I'll also ask to both of you, what's so important about summer reading? What is important about keeping books in the hands of kids? I just want to hear both of your take on that.
For me, it was where I got to pick my books that I got to read. It's like you got that freedom from school reading. And so I got the whole library was my oyster. I wasn't just looking for, Huckleberry Finn or, the Scarlet Letter or anything like that or Shakespeare. It's like I got to pick what I read, whether or not I liked it, anything. And the universe is your oyster. It was just thrilling, like being able to pick what I was going to read.
I absolutely agree. And I think so much of reading when we're kids like formulates all of our tastes and opinions, and so much as adults that like I read so much fantasy as a child, and even now I don't read as much fantasy, but I can still see how those books that I read so many years ago are more influential to me than some of the books I read a couple of years ago because they were foundational.
I couldn't agree more with both of you. I mean, the idea of like, even if I didn't like it, I picked it. No one else made me read something I didn't like. I chose to do that to myself. And then, right, like those books that decided later what my tastes were going to be, those kind of like, right, I think I had the same experience. I read a lot of fantasy as a kid or versions of fantasy. And I feel like I'm looking for that now, or I've found it now in very different places. But right, going back to and recalling on those stories that meant so much to me. There are only a handful of books in recent years that I could go, that one changed me. But if I were to take it back a decade or two, that would be where the list would be so much longer.
Summer reading is also, I feel like where like niche reading happened. Like I remember going and picking up like some how-to things because I wasn't sure. And I was like, oh, there's a book for that. As well as I think now as an adult, I think back to books and I'm like, I could tell you the plot, but I have no idea what that book was. But, all these decades later, I remember that reading. So I feel like even if it wasn't like the most popular books, I definitely picked up things that stayed with me the longest.
1,000%. Just that kind of, I don't know. It was the chance to explore because nothing else was holding you back. You didn't have to go to bed early to get up early and get ready for school, get ready for class. It was freedom all the way around, and it helped kind of build our sense of power in ourselves. Well, should we recommend some books?
Oh, heck yeah, we should.
Let's go for it.
I think we should. Who wants to go first? Who wants to give me their first pick?
I could go first.
Awesome. Go for it,
Yeah.
Cece.
So I'm actually going to start with a middle grade book that I really wanted to recommend because I had to narrow down my summer camp book options, basically. I spent so much of my summer reading at summer camp, and it was ridiculous narrowing it down. So I have Two Night Owl from Dogfish. This is by Holly Goldberg Sloan and Meg Wolitzer. It is a epistolary novel about two girls who are like very different. Their only similarity seems to be that they're both being raised by single gay dads. And that suits both of them just fine until their dads start to date one another. And then Avery and Bet, who sometimes go by Night Owl and Dogfish online, they are dedicated to getting their lives back to normal, which means breaking the dads up before things get too serious. And then they're sent against their will to the same summer camp, and the real scheming begins. This is just like the sweetest, cutest. It starts as an almost anti-Parent Trap love story, but gay Parent Trap vibes. I love that so much about this book. I read the whole thing with a smile on my face, and it just gets into increasingly silly antics that remind me of the Parent Trap, which I have to say was mine and my sister's favorite Disney movie when we were kids. So just it holds a special place in my heart for that as well.
It's so cute and such a good book. I love epistolary storytelling, and to give that to kids, to bring that to the middle grade audience. Like we hit so many markers with this book, from thoughtful representation. How do you deal with happy life? And then suddenly the biggest problem is, what if my single gay dad is no longer single? Oh, and it's so funny because it's the inverse of what you expect, where I know so many kids would be like, I wish you were my sister. I wish you were my sister. Like, why can't we be family? And it's like, they're given this opportunity. They're like, no, we have to ruin it.
No, exactly. And the girls are so cute, and their whole extended kind of family of supportive adults is so wonderful that as you get to know them.
Too good. Oh, well, Carmen, what about your first pick? I'm so excited seeing, but I love getting to see both of your picks like ahead of time, because I'm like, can't wait to hear you talk about this.
I think I may have gone back and forth on some things late as my Libra tendencies go. So I went with something for like Rick Riordan fans who don't like maybe have read all the books, and that he has the Rick Riordan Presents series. There are both middle grade and YA books that are part of the series. The one that I chose was Ballad and Dagger by Daniel Jose Older. And Daniel is a Cuban American author, and he writes fantasy like none other. And I love this series because it's a story of Mattel. He and his family escaped their homeland in the Caribbean 16 years ago when an evil force kind of made it disappear. And they end up in like this multicultural section of Brooklyn. And Daniel, being from there, like really writes like all like the intersections of cultures in Brooklyn like so beautifully. And Mattel is this angsty teen, and has obviously escaped trauma, but he's also like a piano prodigy, and he's very like musically talented. So he has this like soft and art side of him, which Daniel has done in other series as well that he's written. And all he wants to do is go to this performance and perform for this homegrown, like very famous singer named Herbal. And at that performance, the evil that disappeared his island has come back. So Mateo finds himself in the middle of this kind of magical, decades long battle. And so he's like finding the magic in himself. And you're learning about the magic without being overwhelmed, because that's one of the things Daniel does really well. And it's just a really great YA escaping, saving the world magical story. And it is just a duology. So it's just 2 books, but they're pretty long. Like you could, if you weren't the fastest reader, it'd probably take you a few weeks to get through it. And it not being a super long fantasy series, it gives you time to, go back to the library and find other things that we'll be recommending. So that is Ballad and Dagger. And the series, I love the name of it. It is called the Outlaw Saints series. And there's more to that, but I don't want to give too much away. So
I love that. I love a duology, especially for fantasy, as a person who dabbles, I guess is the best word I can think of. Like, I need it to not be 5 to 10 books long. I need it to just be like too cute. And I love that balance you were describing of not having too much to overwhelm you in learning the magic system, learning all of the different components of the narrative.
And then this isn't giving away too much since the family island, but the second book takes place in the Caribbean on the family island. And so it's also like a non-US location for the second book. And it's just like, I love that he mixes it up just enough to keep it interesting. I am the same way. I am very much feel like fantasy newbie. Like I read it, but I'm definitely not a high fantasy person,
I'm with you. I can't do high fantasy, but I can do like an urban fantasy, or like I don't know the word for it, but I need it like that kind of our world, but a little bit to the left. Like, yeah.
Yeah, most of Daniel's books that I've read have been like that, except he's also written some of the Star Wars books. And that's A Galaxy Far, Far Away. But at least for his YA contemporaries that I've read, they've all been current world, some magic, and then magic worked into it, which just makes my brain very happy.
I think I read his series, A Shadow Shaper. It's a YA series that, yeah, just that mix of our world and the magic is done so well.
You read my mind because I was like, that's one of the ones I was going back and forth with because I knew I wanted to talk about Daniel, but I didn't know which book. And that book, he combines like art, like the murals turn into like the monsters, which is just so incredibly cool.
Oh, well, I'm glad that I got a whole author to go and discover off of this because that's exactly the kind of storytelling I'm looking for. And summer reading to me almost completely gets taken over by YA and middle grade and any kind of just like, oh, I feel like I'm a kid again for a minute. And then whatever like the hot new Riley Sager ends up being, then yeah, I usually slip that into. But well, Cece, how about your next pick?
Well, I have another YA book. This one is a YA contemporary because I do have a fantasy. I did bring high fantasy even, which feels crazy for me, but my YA contemporary, this is what it feels like. This is by Rebecca Barrow, and it is one of my all-time favorite YA contemporaries, and I feel like I see it being recommended so rarely. So this is a YA contemporary about three girls, Dia, Jules, and Hannah, who all used to be best friends, and they all used to be in a band together until Hannah's drinking got out of control, Jules got pregnant, and Dia was involved in a toxic relationship that just kind of made her closed off from being able to focus on those friendships. So now that time has passed, Hannah has just gotten out of a rehab center, and Jules is actually kind of kicking ass as a new teen mom. And Dia is feeling ready to maybe fall in love again, and then she sees a poster for a local band competition, and she remembers the music that her and her friends used to make and decides that maybe it might be worth it to try rebuilding those relationships. I just think this is really sweet. It deals with so many heavy topics with such love and sweetness when it comes to how these girls are with each other, how they are trying to repair their relationships, how they're trying to be better. And on top of it, there's really cute sapphic romance. And I don't know, I want to see this book more places. So
I love it. I love everything about that. Like something about the getting the band back together. Not often that I get to use that cliche. Uh, but that's so fun. And I think especially for the YA age range to take you through the like, what does it feel like to lose friendships, especially big friendships, foundational ones? Like these are the friends who put the band together and then everything brought them apart. So I think that's really thought provoking, but it also, I don't know, there were so many other things I could think of that came to mind that I was like, oh, this evokes this makes me think of that. And I love that. I think that'll be a great rec. And I hope a lot of you are picking that up right now. We could all use it, whether you're healing the part of you that is mourning a friendship gone by, or you are a kid who needs to navigate that. Pick it up, check it out. I love that you all have three books today because I'm thinking like we're not done yet. It's nice that we're not even like we're not even teasing with who wants to bring more. It's not Happy Pride. You just get to bring more today. So Carmen, your next pick.
I am also recommending a another YA contemporary. This one is more recently released. It's called Canto Contigo by Johnny Garzavilla. And this is like a mariachi rivals to lovers contemporary high school romance. And the thing that Johnny does so well as an author, sorry, I'm recommending whole authors too here today, is that Johnny writes their characters like just so well. And the banter and the talking is just so young and fresh and just will take you places. And this story is so wonderful because you're in Raphael's head at the beginning. And Raphael is a mariachi singer at his school. And you start 8 months before the story, the main story. And Raphael has just sang his school to their 11th consecutive mariachi victory and kind of, almost hooks up with the hottest guy he's ever seen. And then then the story starts. And it's Raphael's parents telling him that, well, we are moving and you have no say in the matter, basically. I mean, why would you? You're a high school student. And we're moving to another district. So Raphael, with all of his confidence and swagger, walks into the, Selena Quintia high school to become their mariachi singer. And lo and behold, they have one. And happens to be the hottest guy he almost made out with 8 months ago. So this turns into a whole rivalry. And the thing with Raphael is that he has to learn to work with others. And it is his struggle, and it is the struggle of his relationship with his potential love interest. And I love how bantery and funny it is, how swoony it is. And it's just very steeped in Mexican culture. And Rafael also, his grandfather was a singer and he had a very close relationship with him. So it's also this multi-generational family story about where you come from and your culture and what's important to you. And is a darling story that is it's like a little warm hug. And, summer romance, a little romance in the summer.
We all need a little summer romance to get us through. And this cover is stunning. I want that as an art print. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I feel that Johnny really had looked out with covers, all their book covers.
That's true. A lot of their books are
I was
just
gonna say,
beautifully designed.
I think I have every single one of their books on my TBR. Every single time I sort them, I'm like, it's just stunning.
They're great summer stories. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, darn, right? I guess we'll just have to read them all. Oops. Well, thank you for pushing Johnny's books further up the list as I build out my ideal summer wardrobe of what to read. Cece, what's your next pick?
The last one that I have is, I'm kind of throwing it back to the fact that my friends and I used to use our summer reading to just binge through a fantasy series. And I feel like this series, the first book is Fireborn. The series is called The Aurelia. Devoured this series. When I was in high school, it has morally ambiguous characters. It has a ton of political intrigue. It has this really complicated childhood friends to rivals to lovers, maybe romance, and a whole lot of dragons. So we follow two characters, Annie and Lee, who have a very, very different background, but they've been raised together in an orphanage. Basically, both of them lost their entire families during a revolution. Annie's family was murdered by dragonfire, and Lee's aristocratic family was murdered by revolutionaries. Now they have this kind of bond. But the revolution has made it so that in this world, instead of just highborn people being allowed to be dragon riders, lowborn people can also kind of test into becoming this class of protectors of the city. And after all of their closeness, after the fact that Annie and Lee are the only two who know one another's secrets, they are bitter rivals, trying to be, each of them, the head dragon rider of this new regime. It is super tense. It's super political. You can tell the themes of rebellion and how a city is controlled, how power is used. It's just, all of that is done so well. This was originally, it said, inspired by Plato's Republic, the world, which is an interesting little... But you get more characters as you go on in the series. It's tender. I love the fact that this is a romance and a bitter rivalry, but that there is that unbreakable bond in the middle of the fact that they are really against each other and from such different places. So fabulous. I could not have asked for more of this trilogy.
Sounds incredible. I'm so sold. I mean, dragons for summer, it's like, couldn't ask for anything better. How many books are in the series, Cece? I'm sorry, I didn't hear at the beginning.
Oh, it's a trilogy, so there are 3, and all 3 of them are out. I believe Furyborn, I think, is the last one, but yeah, all 3 are out.
Even better, all 3 are out, so you can just go and binge and make that be your fantasy summer moment. And, you know, as we've all said, like,
Exactly.
oh, hi, fantasy may not always be the pick, but sometimes you have to get into it. Like, it may not be your every time, but this is your chance to challenge. Pick up horror, pick up whatever you've been meaning to try, even if it's just one book. Well, Carmen, your last pick.
Okay, here we go. So this book was sold to me as Buffy meets Zorro. So this is for anyone who likes vampires, vampire hunters. It is called The Cruel Thirst by Angela Montoya. And this is a YA romantasy, I mean, not romantasy, it's YA first. And this is the story of Carolina Fuentes. She is raised in a family of vampire hunters, and she very much does not like vampires. And she is secretly training to become one because her father is like, no, you should, when you come of age, you're going to get married and you're not going to do this vampire hunting thing. And Catalina's like, absolutely not. She's secretly training and working her way through. She's like incredibly defiant, but also like trying to just, play along. And she ends up meeting Lalo Villalobos, who he was this very quiet, bookish young man who was turned by a vampire very recently. So he doesn't really know exactly what he's doing. And Carolina meets him as he's like trying to run away after he gets turned so he doesn't harm anyone. This is his biggest thing. He does not want to harm any humans. And their little road trip is just kind of hilarious because she wants to kill him, but she's also like, he's very hot, And so from the start, you see like this little bit of struggle, and it's very like opposites attract, but also like learning to work together with your sworn enemy to vanquish an even bigger like evil in the world, and while they fall in love. So, the ultimate summer escape.
You said so many good keywords in that list, but then when you added in road trip, absolutely.
I think like there's only one room, like that happens at it in, of course, naturally. So yes, it's a lot of buttons pressed there.
Get the tropes ready early. I love it. Well, I'm going to take a note out of Carmen's book and just sneak in 2 author recommendations here. Because when I think summer, you both have evoked so many things that I think of when I think of like what's on my summer reading list. And of course, because the next book is coming out in September, I have to say this is your time to read or reread the Witchling series from Claribel A. Ortega, an absolutely brilliant introduction to the magic school idea in gorgeous representation. I was so lucky and grateful to get to talk to her for House of Elephants. But now we have Scepter of Memories coming out. I want to say September. I'm doing this on the fly. I was not prepared by any means, but it is such a good series. If you haven't picked it up, I know any of any of the good old days listeners know it's no shock that I'm talking about this series, but it's so important and it's so beautiful. And I want to know what's happening.
Seconding everything Claribel Ortega. Like she just writes delightful, magical middle grade,
There is something to it that's just absolute magic and happiness. And there's no bad time in her books. Like you get the full range of emotions, you get the full experience. You can be the adult reading the middle grade. You can be reading it with your kiddo. Whatever your situation looks like, you're not going to be disappointed. And then my flip side recommendation on more the YA side is Adam Sass. He writes stunning books across the board. So if you are looking for romance, you can go the route of romance, whether it's 99 Boyfriends of Micah Summers or Cursed Boys and Broken Hearts. Or if you want more the like thriller route, more of the kind of scary movie summer, you could go Surrender Your Sons or Your Lonely Nights Are Over. So just sneaking in two, of course, that anyone who's listened to me over the last couple of years is not surprised to hear me mention. But for those of you who are new here, welcome. You got a very traditional Joe rec.
Love that we're continuing our theme of just overwhelming everyone with books. That's just fabulous.
That's the goal.
Job well done, team.
We can all have our gold stars for today. We did it.
That's all I wanted. I just need a gold star at the end of every work day.
You know, if that's what people need, I'm happy to just be like, here, here's your imaginary sticker, add it to the chart. But thank you both. Now is the part where I will awkwardly transition us to the next selection of book recommendations. All right, now we're back for part 2 of our summer reading recommendations. Joining me, we have Bree at locked_booktician_ and Meara at Meara is reading. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being here.
Howdy. Thank you for having us.
So before we dive into your recommendations today, what comes to mind when you think of summer reading? Are there any memories? Did you participate in your library's summer reading games? Things like that. Is there anything you still do today when summer rolls around?
Listen, when I hear summer reading and I think summer reading list, I'm miserable. I was always going to love to read, but I hate being told what I had to read. And sometimes it was books that I liked. Like I would be like locking myself in in the bathroom with like no electronics or anything, and just the book, and be like, you like this book, you're having a good time. But because I like had to do it, I was not having a good time. But reading during the summer, like my dad dropping me off at the library, going to the library with me, and just like getting a whole stack of books and then coming back and it's like 100 degrees waiting outside for them to open so I could get new books. That was my ideal summer reading.
I mean,
Nice.
my same exact journey. I would be blowing through the summer reading game, but anything on that list, I'd be like, I simply cannot. You won't make me read. And I would always find the books that I had already read on the list and then just do that as the project because I was always a year or two ahead of what they were suggesting. Bree, how
Work
about
smarter.
you? Yeah, right. You gotta work smarter. What do you think of with summer reading? Any memories?
I'm gonna be honest. I grew up in New Orleans where in a neighborhood where reading was not prioritized. And it's just like was not a thing that people really did. It was more like cultural activities that people participated in. So like I love have going to parades in the summer and like getting to do all kind of different things that I could do with my family. But as an adult, like who reads? I love reading spooky stuff, especially in the summer. I read spooky stuff all year round. Joe, you know that. We talked
I
about
do.
it. I'm spooky all the time. It's never an off button for spooky. I tried really hard with my Rex today to have one not be as spooky. But I love reading horror in the summer. I love reading horror, especially Japanese horror in the summer. Because to me, Japanese horror is the scariest. So when I think of like groups of people who write horror, it's like Japanese is number one for me, then indigenous people, then Black people. But it's like by an inch because it's all pretty scary. But in the summer, because Japanese horror is more scary for me, I like to read it in the summer because it's like you're hearing this, you know, I do a lot of audiobooks because of my dyslexia, but it's like I'm hearing the books and I'm like into it, but it's also like bright outside. And it's just like beautiful. And I'm like, okay, you don't got to be too scared, sis. You got it. You got it. You got it. So, like, that's how I think of in the summer. But I also realize I don't read a lot in the summer. I be trying to be outside, you know,
Get
doing,
the good weather while you can.
yeah, doing things with my friends, if you know what I'm saying. So I just be like to be out, you know? Yeah.
Wait, I have to step back from talking about books real quick. Bree, where in New Orleans did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in the 17 wall uptown.
Okay, I'm from Slidell, and I went to
You're from
UNO.
Slidell. Come on. Come on, Slidell. But yes,
27, I was like,
yes.
oh my God.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
crazy.
Bringing people together.
Sometimes you got to, but it's like me, New Orleans is a time in the summer. What?
No, that's like, I was inside reading because it was so hot. I didn't want to be
It's
outside.
like,
I was
you
cooking.
want me to die in this humidity?
Yeah, with these
No.
bugs.
No. I remember one time I almost fainted at Jazz Fest. I was like, this is it. I'm
I
about
believe
to
it.
die. But
believe it.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
The end
Yeah.
is nigh.
Mhm.
I get it. I love that though, and I also love that, Brie, no matter how much horror you read, you still get scared. Like that's the thing that I love about horror reading is that like
Yes.
it's not even like you're trying to chase the high of like, oh well, this one scared me. It's just the like, what is going to hit me and how, and you don't become desensitized to it. It's just the like, it was either worth it or it wasn't.
Yeah. And to me with horror, what I think people of color, BIPOC people do the best with horror is they lend from a sliver of their culture and
Mhm.
like make it horrific. And it's
Yes.
the most mundane thing that you would think of. And now you're terrified of the doorbell being rung. And you're
Well,
like, it's a doorbell, but you're terrified.
but you also like the three groups that you mentioned have such strong cultural pulls. Like there are such like folk mythology that's so beautifully written that lends into horror
Yeah.
so easily. I think like folk
Yeah.
horror and like urban legend horror is some of my favorite because it's the like, well, a lot of people talked about this, so why
Yeah.
were they talking
And like,
about it?
yeah, and cautionary tales. Like it
Hmm.
can be something you grew up learning about. And
Right.
then that's how I felt about Candyman. And then they made it a movie. And I was like, me and my friends in elementary was terrified of said Candyman. And you guys are out here making it a movie.
Right. You guys are
Yeah.
out here saying it. Okay,
Because
great.
in New Orleans we were terrified.
Hmm.
Terrified. And I'm like, oh, it's a whole movie. Never will see that actor the same. Cool.
Yeah. Brie, I hope you're going to be on the Indigenous stories episode because I agree. I read a lot. And as I'm like pulling what books I want to recommend for that, I'm like, Meara, it can't be all horror. Like you
It
have
will
to
be.
branch out,
It
but it
will
will
be.
be.
It will be horror. I just know
I think
I'm
I have like,
coming with horror.
I think I have one and it's still like full of folklore, but it's
Yeah.
not, and it's a murder mystery, but it's not
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
The only thing I will tell y'all to do is how many titles you can bring. I will never say what they have to be. If I look at it and go, oh, maybe we'll throw another rec in there, I'll bring it. That's fine.
Listen.
Perfect.
Love
Because
that.
like there's also something about today. Like, so we're going to get into books for the juvenile middle grade YA audience. And I love that both of you found such strong pulls that kind of run across the board. So there's something for kids of all ages. It's not just what you're seeing pushed on the main level. So if you have a kid who does like the spooky, who does want the creepy crawly, who you're not going to be too mad if one night you get a knock on your bedroom door going, I scared myself. Can I sit up with you for 10 minutes? Like, yeah, let him read it. But there's as much variety for kid lit as there is for us adults. So I think that's what's so important here. And I think with that, who wants to dive in with their first pick?
I'll let Brie
I
go
think-
first.
Oh, me. Got put on that. Got it. I also wanted to say like adult readers or watchers, if you are listening or watching, you do not have to be an adult to enjoy some middle grade. I'm gonna tell you right here, right
Correct.
now. Middle
Correct.
grade has me locked down. I love reading middle grade. That's my favorite age group to read from, actually. Even though I read a lot of adult novels, middle grade, especially middle grade horror or coming of age stories, it's just so beautiful of how many children of different backgrounds, races, and religion have actual representation in literature of how they see themselves. And I just think that is so beautiful. So adults out there, get you some. So we're gonna,
Absolutely. I'm going to
yeah,
interrupt to immediately agree. Like, books are for everyone. Like, get into the genres, get into the age ranges that make you feel something, because you could be healing your inner child. You could just be enjoying a really good story. Like, that's the thing. You want the book to captivate you, because then it's also going to captivate the kid. So
yeah, yeah.
read everything.
Read everything, and I feel like that healing part is very important, especially for a person. I'm in the book community, and everyone always want to talk about what they read when they were a child, and it's crickets for me, because I don't really have anything to
Uh-huh.
add to those conversations, also due to like zoning and where I was from in New Orleans and privilege and access. So it's just like I don't have a lot to add to those, but me reading middle grade is so healing. I remember reading this story by Nnedi Okorafor, and it's like she has a series. It's a fantasy series. I don't know why I'm blanking on it. It's like Akata Witch. Yes, it's the Akata Witch series. And I remember being like, wow, this is so dope to see how many people in a community can support a child if that child feel not supported. A magic school, magic systems, different type of magic things that pull from different Nigerian aspects of like their beliefs and culture. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful, because at that time you just have a bunch of white authors writing stuff and you just have to imagine yourself in those. But when you read a book that has you in there, you see yourself in characters, you don't have to do that imagination. It's already being done for you. So I just love that easy glide into literature that middle grade is providing BIPOC folks and BIPOC children. Sorry to go on that rant, but we're going to talk about my love for dragons. So this book came out recently. I literally just got this from the library a couple days ago, and I don't be trying, not the library, half price books, and I don't be trying to buy books. I be trying to keep my coin yoin 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 yoin. You hear me? In my pocket. However, I went ahead and got this book. It is the first in a series, and when I tell you, this author does not mess around. So it's called The Last Dragon on Mars by Scott Rentgen, I think is how you pronounce his last name. So The Last Dragon on Mars, it follows a story of like the underdog, this character who is on Mars and he is fighting for resources and realizing that everything on this planet turns to the opposite when it comes there. So like if it's a wolf, it's a cuddly animal. Like everything is the opposite. If it's a chicken, it's after you. It's trying to take you out. So it's the very opposite of how animals would behave. They would behave the opposite way on Mars. Every planet in our solar system has a dragon, and we are being introduced to why the dragon on Mars was killed and who is going to be the next dragoon for this other dragon that is here, and no one knows about it. So you follows the story of this young boy who is trying to survive on this planet. He falls into this pit. He hears a sound. It's a very like commanding sound, and he's like, okay, so like who's talking to me? And then he looks and sees this big ass dragon, and this dragon is like super nice, really like him. And then these like armed forces come in, and they're like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And he's like, well, I kind of like landed here. And then the dragon is like, I want him here. And then he has to compete with the person who they were assuming would the dragon would choose, but the dragon chose this underdog and was like, you may think because you're poor and you don't have access and you don't have this and you don't have that you are not valuable, but I see a fight in you and I choose you. And that exploration and then meeting other dragons and seeing what these dragons can do, 5 stars. Hope I didn't spoil. I am known for a spoiler, but I think I gave you a good introduction. But this one owes me nothing. Okay, not a word, not a saying, nothing.
Wow. Damn. That was like a heavy, like not a heavy sell. Like it was a great sell. Like so much enthusiasm.
if y'all are just listening and not watching, the enthusiasm, like the physical energy that Brie brought into that description,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a book that plays like a movie in your head.
It really does. And you're just like, what I find about other dragon like books I've read, I feel like we don't get enough of the dragons. I felt that
Yeah.
way when Game of Thrones started, and I'm like, why y'all keep giving us Salt Bay action of the dragons and not like the real dragon? Why are we getting more? But then, we found out it was a budget issue or whatever. But in a lot of books, I don't feel us really being in the minds of dragons, or just like supernatural beings. And I don't read a lot about dragons, but I have been reading some dragon books, and I feel like this is like pretty much all dragon. Like it's heavily in the dragons' minds, and how they're thinking and how they feel wronged. And it's just like a couple battles happening here. It's like it's
Wow.
going down. Like you got to be like, I am firmly grounded in who I am. And it's a story of like, what's the dangers? What happens when you don't believe in yourself? When you don't believe that you ain't that guy,
Mm-hmm.
and other people see it and you don't. You're like, no, 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 it ain't me, it ain't me, it ain't me. And the dragon is like, no, 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 it is you. Like you got a huge, powerful dragon telling you, small human, that you are that guy. Then be that guy. And it's like it's just like it's so fantastical. Like I'm sorry, I can't stop talking about this book because I love it so much. And I will be buying that second one. I don't want to be judged. I think it comes out later on this year. So
It sounds
yeah.
like a perfect thing, though, a kickoff to a new series, something
Yes.
that a lot of kids are going to relate to. I think that's where it's like it goes across the board that no matter what kind of little kid you are, a lot of little kids are ready for dragons, are ready for fantasy. And
Absolutely.
this sounds like accessible fantasy. I think a lot of the
Yes.
dragon fantasy I had access to as a kid, I wasn't going to get through it because,
Too complicated. This one
yeah.
is not. This one is definitely not. And then shout out to my friend Ashley for giving this recommendation, and we read it in her book club. So shout out to her. But yeah, this one is dope.
Well, there you go, folks. Meara, where are you going to take us to?
So my first book is kind of similar,
Love it.
but it's a cozy fantasy. It is about a girl, I want to say like 12-year-old girl named Faye, who lives in a castle with the wizard West. Each direction has a wizard, and her father is like the head like herbologist, apothecary. He does a lot of like herbal magic kind of stuff. And so she's grown up there, and they have a dragon, and they have all of these magical things, and the dragon is just this sleepy little guy. But Wizard West dies, and you have to have a new wizard, but he is just so full of himself that his ghost doesn't want anyone to know that he's dead, and he hasn't picked his successor yet. And so it's this fun little trials trope as all of these boys come in to compete to be the new Wizard West, and Faye is kind of the only person who's really kind of standing up to this ghost. They're all like, all the other servants, everyone like, Faye, you do it. Like, we don't know how to deal with him. And she has always been kind of quietly minding herself and like doing all these things. And as the story progresses, she like gains this confidence and realizes that no one knows this castle like she does. So it's called The Girl Who Kept the Castle. It's by Ryan Grudden. And it's just this like wonderful story of, first of all, teaching girls that they can do anything that boys can do, especially in a fantasy setting. I feel like growing up, I loved reading fantasy books about girls, but often it was like girls having to pretend to be boys, or girls being in place of boys, and not a girl being a girl and being competitive amongst the boys anyway. She doesn't even know that she's competing. So it's gaining that confidence, trusting yourself, learning how to like deal with people who are kind of narcissistic. Just like a lot of great lessons that aren't super on the nose, but just like when I finished reading it and I was thinking about it, I was like, wow, oh my God, there's just like so much to take from the story. And it's fun, it's cozy, and it's very Studio Ghibli influenced. So if that is your vibe, very much a read.
Yes.
I like this. I like the concept of a wizard at each location and a disgruntled ghost who is just like, I am not giving this up. It kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of Lincoln and the Bardo. If you ever like read that book, it's like a satire about President Lincoln and his son who died. His ghost is like just going through his ghostly life and meeting all of these different ghosts from different times in life, and they're like, it's super satirical and so funny, but it's like they all have grievances and they like are not afraid to tell this little like 7-year-old boy about their grievances. So it kind of like
Funny.
reminded me of that.
Yeah.
I'm also always down for Studio Ghibli vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can like directly tell some of the references, like some of the characters and like, or like things in the kingdom are like directly named after things that are
Oh.
Ghibli. And so I was
love
like,
it.
hang on a second. when I was
Wait a
reading it.
minute.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, Bree, where are you taking us next?
Oh, dang, I forgot it was 2 of us today. So I did have a plan to talk about these 2 books. Oh, sorry, I should. I did have a plan to talk about these 2 books, but then I said, no. So I changed my mind. And then I wanted to talk about, okay, I can't remember the order I went, so I'll just say it off the cuff. We're going to talk about Hide and Seeker. So what I was talking about to everyone on the podcast now before we started filming is one of my favorite things about Black and Indigenous and Japanese writers who write spooky in the spooky genres is that they use a sliver of their culture to kind of turn a story upside down. And Hide and Seeker is no exception to that. So growing up in New Orleans, a lot of times people played hide and seek. Hide and seek, I think, is a very thing to play. I think even non-Black people played hide and seek. Hide and seek, everybody knows about hide and seek to a point. And you follow the story of there was this young boy, he went missing. And his mom was like, what's going on with you? Why, like, why won't you go and play with your friends? He was missing for a year and just showed up. And his mom is like trying to get him to go and play with his friends. And he's just like, I guess, but he has a lot of stuff going on in his head because his mom doesn't know what he went through for that year. So he goes outside and there's this friend there who is like, hey, do you guys want to play hide and seek? And they're like, yeah, look, we can play hide and seek. And he's like, but listen, you got to follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, things will happen to you. And they're like, okay, you mean we're playing hide and seek. So they would play hide and seek, and every time they messed up the rule, he'll be like, they'll hear a sound or a whisper of something, and like, what was that? Like, what was going on? Then they got transported to this dimension, and they all have a stamp on their wrists or somewhere on their body of the days that they've been in this alternate world because they did not adhere to the rules of that little boy who said hide and seek. So it gets so spooky and twisted. It just makes hide and seek look like you never in the history of your life ever want to play that game ever again. You're like, that's for them. That ain't for me. And you just don't want to do it. And you're just like in the minds of these children, because I think it's multiple POV, and you're in the minds of these children talking about how real that's that fear that they got from being in this dimension and knowing that, oh, I've been here for what, 4 years? Oh, I've been here for 5. They know how long they've been in this dimension because they are not adhering to the rules that was set by this person who told them, do you want to play hide and seek?
This is why you cannot sleep on middle grade, because who wouldn't that freak out? Who wouldn't
Yeah.
enjoy that story? And
It's
like,
terrifying.
perfect cover. It's so creepy. I know as a kid, I would have eaten this up. And I cannot wait to go and eat this up
Yeah.
now as an adult.
It is. I'm telling you, I was like,
Mm-mm.
oh no, gotta head out on this. So I was like, mm-mm.
I'm literally
yeah.
so scared. I'm so scared
Yeah.
right now. I was like getting chills as you were telling that. I was like, no.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Meara, where are you taking us from there? From creepy hide and seek?
I'm sorry.
Definitely nothing as scary as that. But we are going to talk about some vampires. So my next book is The Vanquishers by Kaylin Bayron. Y'all might recognize Kaylin from like This Poison Heart.
Oh my God.
She's got some big hits. The Vanquishers is her middle grade fiction. And it is about a group of 12-year-olds who live in San Antonio, Texas, and they live in a world where vampires are real. And all of the vampires have already been taken out. It's been 20 years since the last reaping, which was like the big fight of the vampire fighters, aka Vanquishers, versus the last cell of vampires in San Antonio. And it is Vanquishers Week. It's a big celebration week for this event. And their parents are so paranoid. So our main character is Boog. Boog or Boog. It's her nickname. And her two best friends who live next door to her. And all of their parents are just so cautious. Can't go out at night. They're still doing all the like home recipes for vampire protection. They're really embarrassed about it because everyone else's parents are like, yeah, do whatever you want. And then they get this school counselor who's kind of weird. And they're like, something's up with this guy. And then they make this new friend and he goes missing. And they're like, something is up with him. Like, there's no way he just went missing. Their parents are trying to be more controlling. They're trying to get out of the house to save their friend. It's kind of their first times disobeying. They learn some lessons. I don't want to give anything away, but it's a very diverse group of kids. I think every kid who reads this will see themselves in one of the characters. So imagine Buffy the Vampire Slayer like that. And that's about what you got. It was very fun, not scary, but great for anyone who... I was going to recommend The Chronicles of Vladimir Todd, which is another like middle grade vampire book, but I think that this is a more updated, relevant version of vampire books for middle grade.
Absolutely. When I saw that you wrote that down, I said, how could she steal what I was about to pick?
I go put in my book so fast because I'm like, I can't let anyone else pick what I'm going to say.
Listen, Vanquisher, 5 stars. 5 stars.
Is there anything that I missed that you would like to add? I'm trying to not give too much away.
No, you nailed it. Only thing I would add is that it's a book that also teaches children to be very cautious of the adults in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just listen, these strangers, these teachers, just because they're in positions of power, don't mean you should trust them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I have theories. I have theories on who's a vampire because
Me
spoiler
too.
alert, you guys, vampires are back. If you didn't
Oh,
guess
vampires
that.
are so back.
They're so bad.
I have theories on who's a vampire, and so I'm like, I need to read the next book. I need to know.
Same. I need to finish that series.
Well, and while Kaylin did not join us for the first half of this episode, you can look forward to hearing us talk with Kaylin Bayron on episode 7 because she will be joining to talk about book bans. So since the the plug is right there, stay tuned, y'all.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Bree, your last book.
My last one.
I'm excited. I saw this one and I went, "Ooh, yeah, I'm glad this one made it to the list."
I know. I was like, oh man, but I really like this book. The next book I'm going to talk about follows 2 siblings. I can't remember if they're twins or not, so don't quote me on that. But they are 2 siblings who, growing up in a Gullah Geechee community, they are Gullah Geechee themselves. If you're not familiar with Gullah Geechee people, they're Gullah Geechee people reside in the Carolinas. They have a long history, very similar to just Black people in this country who have been have enslaved ancestors and was forced to till the land and be put under bondage for the benefit of white supremacy. That's the cleanest way I could say that. So we'll say that. So Root Magic follows, like I said, these 2 siblings, and something tragic happens to them. Their grandma dies, unfortunately. And when grandma dies, they start to get lessons about the root magic that their family uses, and they start to learn more about what that is after their grandma passed. And then they also are being faced with police officers in the community who wants to tear down their house or physically harm them. So they're dealing with trying to keep their magic secret and also protect them from outside sources that is trying to take away from them. And I think it's a beautiful story of how, like, you can be so close to your grandma and still feel her influences and still have her guide you. It is a great depiction to me of like your ancestors are always with you. I'm constantly thankful for my ancestors. I give them offerings often. So for me, this felt like very tied to how I identify as a Black person. So I just think it was done very beautifully, but it also had like those real themes of like, society will try to tell you that your root magic is the devil's work. Your root magic should not be used, that you should not exist as a Black person, and especially as Gullah Geechee people, because there's also like a lot of legislation and things that has happened to them over a period of history where their land and their knowledge and everything has been attacked by their government. So to me, I think it was a really good book. I do know that I simplified it because there's a lot in the book that I don't want to spoil. I am a huge spoiler, you guys. I'm trying not to spoil things. But the cultural impact of this book was done really well. And shout out to that author. You were in your bag, 5 stars for me.
It's a beautiful book. I mean, looking at grief, looking at inequality in the system, just
Hmm.
so many thoughtful and meaningful moments. It just
Yeah.
and I love to read for so many reasons, but especially when I get to see a different perspective. Like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Because just because I'm Black don't mean I know about Gullah Geechee people. I'm from New
Mhm.
Orleans. You know what I mean? That's a different culture.
Right.
So for me, it's like finding out, and I even followed the Queen of Gullah Geechee like on YouTube and like just like listening to her talk about her love for her people and things that's coming up and like just things that they're doing. I think it's really dope, and I really hope that we um increase the awareness of Gullah Geechee people in America and their attributions to society, because too often we live in this chasm of America, and it kind of like leads everybody else out of it if you don't kind of fit into that bubble. And a lot of times we lose culture, we lose language, we lose people, we lose knowledge holders and keepers. And to me, it's just really important that we shine light on these people because they're resilient and they're living and they are continuing to live in their truth. So I think Root Magic was just like a good introduction to Gully Geechee people through middle grade if you have never heard of them before.
And middle grade is such a great way to get introductions to new topics and cultures because not to say it's a sanitized version, but it's like it's the first step. And so it's
Yes.
really easy to like begin to digest this new, whether it's a group or a tradition or whatever it is that you're learning. And
Yeah.
then you can like graduate in content. And so that's like
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite ways to dip my toe into learning new cultures or like starting new genres by, like you said, like how like indigenous people and Japanese people and Black people are great horror writers. Like whenever I'm
Mhm.
stepping into something new that's very specific, like that middle grade fiction is so good for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And just also like analyze what you're comparing to what you think that genre should look like. I think is important too, because it's like every culture, and even within those cultures, have different outlooks on what that genre looks like, have different
Yeah.
Yeah.
viewpoints. So it's like, I remember a long time ago, I was like, guys, listen, Black and Indigenous horror is not Stephen King horror. Stop comparing it to Stephen King. Like that's not what you should be doing. So it's just like it's just open your mind up, I guess, is
Right.
like the best way to put it.
Introduce yourself to some subgenres, some niches, some different
Yeah,
perspectives. Oh, I love it.
true.
I'm just
Well,
gonna say I recommended this in the audiobooks episode though, but Brie, if you haven't specifically listened to The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, which is a
I
Stephen King
have
retelling.
not of Carrie. I keep
Yes.
missing out on the Carrie stuff.
Yeah, but
I
it's
keep
Carrie,
missing
but
out.
instead of being about her weight or anything like that, it's about that she's a white passing biracial high schooler in a like segregated, basically
Wow,
Alabama
it's a
town
passing
or
story.
Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've
So-
read Monday's Not Coming, and I said, this lady is strong with the pen. This lady is strong, done scared the crap out of me. So
Oh
I
my God,
haven't
love
read
that.
anything else after that. But yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
My next book, my
Yeah,
last
take
book.
us home.
Ray, I swear I'm not copying you, but my next book also deals with root magic. We were just
Copying
like
me.
we were like this when picking our
Twinning.
books.
Yeah, we were twinning them.
My next book is We Are Also Good at Smiling by Amber McBride. It is a book written in prose. It is about Whimsy, who is it's a young adult book. She's a teenager who is really struggling with clinical depression after her sibling has gone missing. And so it actually opens with Whimsy in a mental hospital getting treatment. And there she meets a boy named Fairy. And Fairy just like instantly draws to Whimsy. And they are kind of just like this. And when their parents find out that they know each other, they are like, absolutely not. We cannot do this. Turns out that Fairy also has a missing sibling and is struggling with clinical depression and PTSD from that. Well, Fairy and Whimsy, it turns out Fairy has just moved in across the street from Whimsy. So the parents wanting to keep them separate isn't super doable. And their house is back up to this forest. And it is like capital T, capital F, the forest. And this forest is a dark place. And they're not supposed to go into it, but something calls to them. And the void that the depression and the trauma and everything has left inside of their bodies, they feel like something in the forest can fill that hole. And so they go into the forest. And in the forest, we have a Dante's Inferno retelling of the circles of hell through fairy tales. And so they are basically like re-investigating all those levels of hell, but it's like the Hansel and Gretel house and different little fairy tales. And they have to each use different skills that they have or memories that they have or something like that to get through each round and to unlock what has been weighing on them. And so it's really a story of like going through your own psyche and unlocking your own traumas, but just in these like incredibly recognizable ways where you can like easily fit your own like understanding in. You don't have to have, you can be 14 years old and not have like big psychological understanding of how things work and hierarchies of needs and all of that. You can just see a fairy tale and like recognize like a theme in the fairy tale and make that comparison. And because it's told in prose, it goes very quickly, but it's very beautifully. I think I like stopped and cried several times. I gave it to my mom, who's a therapist, to read. It is just absolutely phenomenal depiction of clinical depression and dealing with trauma and just like getting into your own brain and unlocking it.
Fantastic.
Have you read it, Brie?
I have not, but
Well,
I
you
want to
should.
now.
Yup.
And I've been trying to read, because this is a Black author, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been trying to read this book for some time, and now I feel like it's giving a sign. The only
Yeah.
issue is I'm deep in a Diviners series right now, so let me finish King of Crows, and then I'm a slide in there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Listen, this one will take you a day.
Okay.
Like if you
Well,
want to take
I
your
can
time with it,
pause.
it can go slower. But like
Yeah.
if you are just like, I just need to like step away and do, granted, it is not a palate cleanser in the least.
But whereabouts you're at in the Diviners, this might fit right in.
No, I just finished book 3. I feel gutted.
Book 3, is that the whole dream one?
No, that's the Layer of Dreams is book 2. It's
Book
like
2,
before
okay.
before something. I always forget the title, but
Oh, is this the
it's
one that
like,
starts at the farm? Book 3 is the one in the farm?
well, is book 3 in the farm?
Maybe book 4 is at the farm. I don't remember. I
I
just
don't
remember a
know.
farm. It's been a minute since I've read them, but they were
Yeah.
fantastic.
I do know there's moments of a farm,
Moments of a
farm-like
farm.
place.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, but I don't know. I got to book 3 where it's like a lot of folks are missing. A lot of folks are dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like favorite character. I was like, when one of them died, I said, this is anti-Black. It wasn't, but it felt that way.
You went, maybe I don't need to finish this series.
Yeah, I was like, True.
Well, thank you both for these incredible recommendations.
Absolutely. I love whenever I get an email from an author or publisher and they're like, hey, we have a middle grade book. I'm like, yeah, I want to read
Yeah.
it. Because
Send
Send it my way.
I feel like there's not enough in the book influencing spaces talks about middle grade books. And like they are still coming out. Everyone just wants to talk about what they read as a kid. And there's new stuff coming out. Life has adapted. I've gone back and read stuff that I read in middle grade, junior high, all that. And I'm like, ooh, this did not age well. So I'm happy to give new substitutions that people can fill that need with the kids in their lives.
I think it's such a good point. It doesn't just have to be for the kids in your life. As we were saying earlier, heal your inner child, but also like you are missing out if you are not reading these stories. Like, it is a shame that there isn't more of a niche of someone talking about these, not just as Rex for kids, but like as Rex for all of you. I mean, I know we get YA coverage, but there is something in that middle grade. Like, what am I thinking of? I read The Wig in the Window because what a ridiculous title. But it's this adorable, like, mystery thriller from a kid POV, and like, why not? Just enjoy a treat. Yeah.
It's so good. Not to plug my friend.
Please.
But I will. Her name is Ashley. Her channel is Realm of Kid Licks Comic. And she talks a lot about middle grade. Like, that's literally her job. She is a youth librarian. So shout out to her. You will find all the rec on her you'll find it on her Instagram, which is Bookish Realm. And then because she'll do every month of like all the new releases of middle grade, and she'll talk about them. So very cool.
That's all we can hope for. More of that.
More of that. We need it. We definitely need it. Just because you're 80 don't mean you can't enjoy middle grade.
Exactly.
And whoever told you that is hating on you, and you got to remove them out of your life.
They're holding you back.
I didn't read Percy Jackson for the first time until I was 18 because my 11-year-old nephew was reading it. And I was like, let me see that. That looks good.
Listen, Percy Jackson will always have my heart. I did a 2.5 readathon of reading everything in chronological order. And I would read a book with my other friend, Nicole. We would do it every 2 weeks. And when I tell you I was being fed, I was being fed. The only thing I didn't like was Kane Chronicles. Don't at me. That should have stayed in the draft. Uncle Rick, it should have stayed in the draft. But everything else, wonderful.
I mean, I get it. I didn't read Percy Jackson until I was 24. So, and I mean, like, I had a juvenile librarian like put it in my hands when I was a kid when it had just come out. And at the time I was in the midst of reading something else, and it was time for it to go back, and I just never got back to it. And then one day I went, I should see what this is all about. And
you're
not kidding.
It's good.
Fed.
It's good. It's good. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Like the talking sword with Magnum Chase. It's just like
it's all there for you.
Oh, so good. So good.
And it is stand out, but it is not unique in the like how fantastic it is in its genre. Like I think people think like, oh, this is really good for the genre.
This is the only one. Like, or that too.
You got to get into the genre. There's so many other books that will light up your soul in the same way that Percy Jackson will.
Yeah.
You don't have to be looking for adult content, adult books. It's all there on the middle grade shelf. Just ask your local children's librarian.
And it doesn't have to be the top rated, the most popular, the whatever adaptation. Like they're all that good. That's why they got published. They are all that good. Pick them out.
Yeah, exactly. Even the Mari and the Knight Brothers. That was gonna be one of the books I talked about, but that's a good series too. Like if you're trying to get into as well. So yeah, love those.
I love it. Well, now let's head over to me doing an outro. There is so much to absorb and enjoy in juvenile, middle grade, and young adult lit. We heard from Jamie Sumner and Kelsey Impicciche and Julie Soto about the impact of summer reading and how to foster a love and community around it. And what fun ideas they had about how we could truly go and make the most out of our summer reading experiences. Then our guest hosts, Carmen, Cece, Bree, and Meara gave some incredible middle grade and YA recs for us all to enjoy. Now make sure you're subscribed and following the show. You won't want to miss next week's episode when I'm joined by Sarah Homden, Megan Miranda, Jonathan Parks Ramage, and Clemence Michelon to talk about the big world of beach reads. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow Book Lounge by Libby on your favorite podcast app and check out the Libby app YouTube channel for our video content. You can also follow us on social media at libby.app, and you can send an email to bookloungebylibby@overdrive.com. If you're loving the show, a quick rating or review helps other book lovers find us. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, happy reading! You can sample and borrow the books from today's episode in the Libby app, or if you're a librarian, find them for purchase in Overdrive Marketplace. Book Lounge by Libby is a proud Evergreen Podcast signature program. Explore more amazing shows at evergreenpodcasts.com. This podcast is produced and recorded by me, Joe Skelly, with editing by Andrew Alonso. Our theme music is High Five by Rex Banner, used with permission. Book Lounge by Libby is presented by the Libby app. Learn more at libbylife.com/booklounge.